to day 3 of Split 2 of the ALGS. We just watched earlier as our EMEA region came out swinging with some seriously standout performances from the likes of Fire Beavers and Jailings, and now it is time for us to turn our attentions towards NA. My name is Glitter Explosion and I will be your host for today, but of course I cannot do this alone. We're gonna have to bring back in our two lovely casters, and we'll start with you, Onset. Are you ready for NA after what we saw in EMEA?
Of course I'm ready. Of course I'm ready. I could not be more excited for North America. I think this is a very, very interesting week. Like we saw from EMEA, kind of gave us a little bit of a flavor of what to expect. Things started to settle down a little bit. It became a little bit more predictable in EMEA. Comp's still a little bit all over the place. I wonder if North America's got a bit more on grasp on how they want to approach things, but trust me, it's going to be an amazing day. Let's get into the games.
I know. I am already hyped to get everything going, but we have one more piece of the puzzle that is this desk, and that is Gaskin. You ready to dive back in?
A piece of the puzzle I don't really fit into many places, but apparently I do in esports. So it's good to be here, good to be alongside both of you. And yeah, I can't wait for North America. I mean, this region never disappoints. There's always excitement. There are a few teams who are still maybe yet to show their true colors here in this meta. And you know what that means? It means there's going to be excitement here today.
Yeah, and we kind of saw that bounce back from the first weekend happen in EMEA. I assume we will see the same thing happen here in NA. But of course, before we get into all of that action, we need to talk about that first weekend because a lot went down. We need to recap that for everybody that is here hanging out with us in case they missed it, because NA was a little bit all over the place. And I mean that in a really good way. I think we saw some surprises on both sides of things that will really make for some interesting gameplay today to see how things play out, starting with the teams who did well last weekend. And of course, we can't not talk about Dark Zero. They closed out our match day 1 with a very, very strong performance, and obviously a team that is always in the discussion due to their consistency at lands all the way up until the most recent playoffs. I mean, 4th place overall with only 1 match day under their belts, and they are a team that definitely has the ability to snowball when they get things going. So it'll be interesting to see what they do here today. Then up next, we have Xset. I mean, now remember, Xset did not even start until day number 2, and they kicked off their very first day of the split with an insane performance. Out of their 6 matches, only 1 finished outside of the top 10 and only 2 finished outside of the top 4. That is the type of consistency we are looking for in a champion team. And then finally, we have FaZe with this new roster, and let me tell you, this new roster has come to play. Currently, they are first on the overall leaderboard at 39 points, and that is mostly due to their insane consistency. Across both playdays, they only placed outside of the top 10 3 times out of their 12 games. Sniped down, leading in kills right now with 24 kills. They are a little bit unstoppable.
They certainly are. One team who's kind of on the other side of that, though, is Sentinels. Obviously, the former guard roster coming in with a new name, with a new banner, and struggling to pick up the form that they had at the last end of the split. And there's a few things that aren't going their way, but this play from Rambo kind of saved them, I think, a little bit in recent weeks. They managed to clutch out this big win. Rambo going off a little bit in this end game, and without this, they would have had 1 point, but now they have 13, which is a much, much stronger looking position. Meat Lovers, another surprise package so far. Tech leading the troops, and those 2 troops are certainly doing the heavy lifting for this squad. Funk and Zainu certainly putting up the slays. I think Zainu is currently sat on 20 kills overall. He's just behind Snipe Down, and then just behind him on 19 kills is the man I just mentioned as well, Zainu. So Tech with some unorthodox play calls sometimes, but when you're backed up by 2 players who aren't going to miss too many shots, you're certainly going to do some damage, and that's why they find themselves where they are at the moment.
Well, as we start to look at maybe some teams that have struggled a little bit, please don't come after me on social media. I promise I do like TSM, but they maybe did not like their first attempt so far in this split. Really struggling with the new meta. A lot of the decisions that were made during their rotations were just a little bit off, and I think even Hao would admit that himself. And if we are going to see TSM return to their form and defend the title they hold from Split 1 playoffs, we are going to need to see a big difference going into this weekend. Another team that hasn't really lived up to the hype ever since the Seer meta became a thing way back when is Furia. They were one of the most aggressive teams. They would dominate the edge. They would dominate any 3v3 engagement, and they'd be third-partying everyone with so many kills, but then they started getting figured out a little bit. Teams started to catch up with the meta. They started to catch up how they were going to play, and now in an environment and a meta where the edges are often a lot more busy because of what is happening with beacons and with ring consoles, suddenly Furia criteria aren't able to play in their way, so they need to find a different way to do so. Lauren.
I mean, lots for us to talk about here today, but we'll take a look at our season standings here so far. Like we mentioned earlier, FaZe up on top with 39 points, followed by Meat Lovers, Team Divergent. This is what I was talking about. Lots of surprises, and not in a bad way. We're seeing the level of competition really being elevated for NA onset.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting season. I think this one, the change in meta has certainly affected some teams more than others. Some teams are thriving, FaZe being one of those. And I've got to say, I'm very impressed with what FaZe have done so far. I think they've made the most of the POI that they have, and they're making their way in some really good position in endgame. And Snipedown is on a revenge tour. I think people kind of forgot about him. He started to become old man Snipedown. Let me tell you, that man's still got some gas in the tank, and he's proven it so far.
I mean, not only that, but we look down at the bottom, and once again, some surprises down here. For me, Gaskin, I don't know about you, but I was a little bit surprised by Luminosity's performance.
Yeah, especially when you consider how incredible Luminosity were on Storm Point in the first split. Like, they were one of the best, if not the best, teams on Storm Point when it comes to the amount of points they were able to get, but potentially because of the contests that are happening, Luminosity may be struggling a little bit, and that seems to be a pattern that is emerging across all the regions at the moment. Is the teams that are having to fight for their POI are really struggling to pick up those points. This can benefit you in the long run if you can fight so hard for it that when you get to LAN, it is your POI, but at the moment, Luminosity, they need to find points somewhere.
But of course, don't forget that some of these teams still haven't played their second play day, so that is going to be today for Group B. That means we're going to be watching Groups B versus C here, and there's a couple teams that are kind of scary in this matchup on set. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, one team we haven't even mentioned yet is BBB, and they are kind of chaos is the best way to put it, but in a very, very good way. Chaotic, much great name for a team that kind of thrives on chaos, right? Zach Mazer, we all know about Zach Mazer. I've got a lot of respect for Zach. I think his IGL calls are ballsy. I think he's very aggressive. He likes to put these team in positions where they can take fights and make the most of what their best play style is, which is being aggressive. Sometimes it doesn't go wrong. Sometimes it can look a little bit silly, but they certainly put themselves in good spots to do some big damage, and I think BBB is certainly going to be one to watch today.
Definitely lots for us to be talking about here. So many strong teams in these two groups that it was going to be hard for us to choose, but we had to do it because it's time for us to talk about which teams we wanted to be keeping our eyes on here today. And Onset, we'll start with you.
Starting with me again. All right, okay. I didn't realize I was going first, but that's all good. Don't worry, I'm prepared. Optic Gaming is who I'm going to be looking at today, Lauren, and everyone at home. And the reason is I was really impressed with what they did in their first match day. It doesn't maybe show in the leaderboards, but if you look at placements, you look into the stats a little bit deeper, you start to see a bit of a pattern emerging. And, you know, Duplex, we love you. Unfortunately, had to step down from this roster. They made that team change. They brought in the new IGL, of course, in Dropped, and he put them in some really good spots. You know, they ended up with 5th, 6th, 7th. 15th was a bit of an anomaly, then 2nd and 4th. Now, the KP didn't quite come alongside that, but if you're putting yourself into great positions, your IGL is putting you into end games, then that can only improve with a few better decisions in those final moments. So I think the Optic are in a really, really good spot right now. It's a really encouraging first week, and I can see this being the resurgence of Optic Gaming.
Well, I mean, Optic Gaming, as you say, changes, but maybe it could be the resurgence. Another team I want to watch is Drug Free. I mean, what an interesting week they had, or an interesting day one they had, should I say. They won back-to-back games. They dropped 47 points on World's Edge, and it was looking like they were going to dominate this match day. It looked like they were going to dominate and take first place. But then Storm Point came around, and suddenly Drug Free only picked up 1 point across 3 of the maps, and they were left scratching their heads as what's gone wrong. What is so different from World's Edge to Storm Point? If they can find the same form that we've been seeing on World's Edge and transfer that somehow, whether it's just how comfortable they are on their legends or when they're picking their fights and how they play the zone, then they can be a team that finds so much success and should be able to pick up points elsewhere where they weren't. And it was looking good when they finished. As you can see from the tweets, Impulse was saying, you know, 47 points, but then 1 point on Storm Point, a little bit of a lull. And then things started to get a little bit interesting on the Twitters. He said, well, no more Pro League for me. I guess I got dropped. And I was left thinking, what on earth has happened? How can you finish 4th on the Pro League day and get dropped at the same time, especially when I thought Impulse had the Pro League position? But then it all started to kick off. Suddenly, Impulse is back on the team. They talked things out. They decided they can be a squad and they will stick together. And my big question to you, Lauren, is how does this affect the squad? Is this going to change their approach? Are they going to still have that chemistry?
I guess we're going to have to wait in here today to see what happens. I do love that our teams are always keeping things spicy and interesting for us. But of course, for me, I want to talk about Xset. I know that I mentioned it earlier when we were doing that little bit of a recap, but Xset was just so dang impressive during their very first play day. I mean, in my opinion, this team is the best team in their group right now. Their consistency was insane, and that is one of the marks of a championship team, even when it comes to talking about playoffs. And I actually got a chance to talk to Nocturnal a little bit about that. And while we're still waiting to see if he's going to be allowed to pull out that Wraith, which I really hope we get to see today, he did say that anything that isn't a Horizon meta is their comfort zone. So they feel really, really great right now. He thinks that they are easily locked in for LAN. And honestly, I don't disagree with that statement at all. If they play even remotely like they did, it's a sure thing. But if you didn't hear us talking about any of the teams that you want to focus on, or if you want to focus on multiple POVs, well, our award-winning multi-view is back for Split 2 of the ALGS. You can go to the command center down below on your page if you're watching right now and choose which perspectives you want to see, which in-game comms you want to hear, or which storylines you want to follow so that you can always watch ALGS your way. Multi-view, make sure you are always checking that out. It is one of the coolest things about this broadcast, that you guys have all of that power in your own hands. But it's time for us to obviously remind you all of what the map rotation is going to be. Starting off the day, the first 3 maps will be World's Edge, and of course the last 3 will be Storm Point. Not changing up anything here, but the one thing that will be very interesting, like we mentioned earlier in the EMEA region, this is the first combination of the last combination of groups we haven't seen. It's the first time they're playing each other between B and C, and there are lots of teams right now in this matchup that function really well with high KP games, snowballing really well. I'm looking at Dizzy, I'm looking at NRG, so I think that it could get a little interesting.
It's going to be a fun day. I mean, the wonderful thing about this split of Pro League is nobody was really sure what to expect, especially after the first couple of days. We didn't really learn too much. It felt like everyone was still finding their feet, are still trying to work things out. Yes, we've had another week of scrims, but with all due respect, we know how scrims are. No one plays in scrims like they do in ALGS, so you kind of get that little bit of false hope, maybe a little bit too much hope, and all of a sudden things change when you get into the big stage here of Pro League. So I want to see if things have a little bit like EMEA started to calm down, if teams are feeling more confident on compositions, if they know what their rotates are going to be, if they've done the research on the group, and if we are going to see some teams put up some more consistent results. Because I think we're in a very interesting spot in the Pro League right now where there is still that real unpredictability factor about what could happen at the end of the day.
Well, I am excited to see what NA has to bring to the table today, because our first match is just about ready to get underway. So that means Onset, Gaskin, let's kick things off.
Thank you very much, Lauren. It's time for us to get into some North America action, Dan, and you've changed your jumper to a beautiful baby blue. Oh, that is lovely. Any decision to that? Do you throw some dinner down your other one? What happened? Tell us the story.
EMEA was sweaty, let's put it that way, all right? So I just felt like I needed to refresh myself a little bit, get ready for North America, and then sweat some more, I imagine, because these games are going to be equally as contested. They're going to be equally as crazy. I've already looked at the drop spots. I know there are teams who are going to be dropping next to each other on some of these maps, so this is going to be so tough for some of these squads who are going to have to fight tooth and nail in those early battles to then try and rotate afterwards.
I think it's interesting as well that there's a group who have only played one play day in this lobby, which are kind of, I almost feel like it's an advantage because you get to watch 2 days of action as well. You only play in one, you get to pick apart a little bit what some of the other teams are doing, a little bit more time to discuss theory craft about how you want to approach things, and we're going to have to see if all of that does pay off for the teams who have only had one match day so far. But the only way for us to find out, of course, your wonderful people who are watching at home and around the globe, is of course to play a little bit of Apex Legends. So map number 1, you can see is going to be World's Edge. We're ready for game number 1 as well. And Dan, I know you've got your eye on those contests.
Yeah, I have. There's a few areas where there could be. It depends whether people are going to be changing their mind after maybe those drop spots were kind of made aware and made public. These guys all talk in Discords, but you can already see there is shots going down over towards Countdown initially. So that's going to be the first contest that we're going to be talking about, and still potentially ones on the southern side of the map, depending on where people choose. Lava Siphon could be. No, Digger going to keep going. So, okay, everything else seems to separate itself. It's just going to be over towards Countdown where there was a few shots that were being fired.
Well, the team that I kind of talked about a little bit in the build-up for today is Optic Gaming. I mentioned their consistency with the new IGL, and I think when you add a new player in, if it's a fragger, it doesn't really affect your team's composition too much. But when it's the IGL, it's kind of a refresh on how we want to approach the game. They have their own ideas, and Dropped has got them into some great positions. I mentioned some of their placements from that first game day that they had, and outside of the 15th, it's like the meme, it's like, yes, 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 not you. 5th, 6th, 7th, 15th, 2nd, and 4th. I mean, 5 out of the 6 games that they played, Dan, 7th is their worst finish. If you're getting into those positions, that shows that Dropped is really doing a great job of his macro and navigating through to those end games.
Yeah, I think that macro is going to be a buzzword, I think, for the next few weeks, just because it has been such a big change for a lot of these teams and IGLs with the big changes in the meta and just how everything is developed, because people are trying new things, because there now are legends that are coming into the fray that perhaps weren't previously a part of things that you had to worry about. But we can see the circle there heading ever so slightly southwest, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a heavy southwest pull. Instead, the areas like staging, climatizer is likely where we're going to be finishing.
Could be an interesting zone for sure. We'll have to see if we get a little bit of beacon information as well to give us a little bit more zone info. NRG at the moment, they're playing the Loba. You can see the Loba ult is down as well, but they've got to be careful because there's a team rotating from Mirage Artois, and I was also interested to see if NRG might be a little bit cheeky and try and claim both of those POIs, but it looks like they're smart enough to realize that's a little bit out of their way for now. But Luminosity on our screens, they're over at Big Maud, and they've got something to prove, I feel, this week, Dan.
Yeah, I was worried because, I mean, Optic and Luminosity were heading towards Lava City, and I was just hoping that they were going to be nice enough that one takes Lava City, one takes Big Maud, rather than there being just initial scrap. But they are now very aware of one another. They knew this was going to be happening, and it's about, do you try and take this fight early so that you can own the southeast side of the map before you rotate, or do you try and rotate together, almost, like mirroring one another side by side, and just assume that you will greet each other a little bit later on, just wave goodbye for now?
It looks like Luminosity, kind of a little bit of poke, a little bit of a prod at the moment to Optic Gaming, but CLG are being more than prodded at. You can see that Nano is having to retreat to his 2 teammates here. Shiny, welcome back, by the way, to the Apex Legends Global Series. Great to see you back on a strong lineup of Counter Logic Gaming. But for the zone, NRG smiling right now, Dan. They are right in the middle of staging. They don't have to move from their POI. They're going to be in a great position for the long game. The question is, will it pull towards staging or landslide as we get a little bit deeper into this game? And the problem with that for teams who choose one side is that it can do a big shift to the other side of the mountainous area. So you've got some decisions to make.
Yeah, this is a horrible circle, really, because you do have to commit either side. And as you said, a big old mountain that is only really split by one chokehold, which is the vault area, and you know full well if you're going through there and there's already teams on the other side, it's very rare you are going to escape it, and if you do escape it, you're probably not going to be very healthy. Dark Zero, who had an amazing day one, it must be said, with the victories that they found and the domination on both Storm Point and World's Edge. They looked like they were trying to have a little peek at CLG, but it looks like CLG weren't really having any of it, quite rightly so. I will say as well, we did see AJC eliminated right at the start of the game. They were the ones who were contesting CCE over towards Countdown when we mentioned. We didn't quite catch the fight, but it was a very quick one that AGC lost.
Dark Zero for now, just going to be down in the little fenced-off area, just by Mirage Artois, making a rotation now, maybe thinking about the zip line. Probably need to scout that out for a little bit longer before all of you decide to make that transition, and make that transition they do indeed. So DZ going to be in a pretty good spot, but having to drop off because they hear a little bit of gunfire in the distance, and they're going to take a little bit of damage from the bridge.
Sharky should be okay, though. He just has to catch up with the rest of the team, and yeah, there you go. You need sometimes to use that Dark Veil just to make the rotation. We often see teams holding on to those abilities for a little bit too long and then being punished for it. It's all well and good holding on to it for the perfect moment, but if you then die, well, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to use it when you're in the death screen and you are just waiting for map number 2. But CLG being patient, they have the caustic available to them as well. We saw a lot of different compositions when it came to EMEA earlier, and it looks like we're seeing a lot of experimentation here in North America as well. We've got a caustic, we have a Gibraltar, we have a Loba, we've got 2 Horizons, 2 Wraiths, 2 Watsons, 2 Bangs. Everyone's trying a little bit of something different.
Yeah, I kind of like it, to be honest with you. A little bit of diversity. Sometimes we were talking about, you know, players feeling that maybe they're a little bit trapped with the class system on who they can play because they do need access to those beacons and ring consoles. You know, it's kind of a comfort pick versus an information pick a lot of the time. And good to see Caustic obviously introducing himself a little bit. He's going to be able to do a little bit of business here and hold down this truck for sure. But Tripods making their way downtown, not to get too musical before we get too far into this game with 19 squads still remaining. But Harvester is going to be where they rotate from, towards where this zone is going to be pulling. So they're going to have to force their way in, but it's been a tough rotate from Overlook for them.
Harvester should be safe for now. And a lot of the teams... the weird thing about Harvester I found is if you're holding the center of it, you're so vulnerable from several different angles that I'm just never comfortable. And it is something you really have to play your space. And whether that's using Catalyst to block off some of those doorways to just give you that extra little bit of comfort level, or just being very aware of your surroundings, as long as you've got a game plan and an exit strategy, then I think it's fine.
You can see the Gent is kind of scouting at the moment and managed to work out a way for Tripods to navigate this position. They're going to take the position down in the Snake instead. Nick Merck's going to do a good job to rotate and kind of deny the line of sight from the team up on the high ground. All of Tripods now in zone, healthy in zone as well, and able to overtake that team that was inside of Harvester. So a nice little call coming in. However, now all of a sudden it's a little bit more uncomfortable as there's a charge rifle Chad who's on the map at the moment. He's looking to singe a few beard hairs.
I've got my sights on a ring console.
Why beard hairs?
I know.
Seems...
Just thought of Nick Merck's and I thought of the beard. You know,
fair.
sometimes
Okay,
got a bit of
all right.
stubble going on.
I'm with you now. I'm with you now.
Man's got
Makes
that,
a lot of
the
sense.
thick stubble as well.
Also have to be very accurate to singe a beard hair, it will be said. Would still hurt. Very hot, I imagine. Or charge rifles. Anyway, Dark Zero are going to be under the bridge, and perhaps perhaps Dark Zero are going to look to play here, as I still have my mind on charge rifles, because we do see sometimes end circles end towards this bridge area. We've seen some very exciting ones, actually. I think most notably TSM won a circle here that ended towards these bridges. But Dark Zero for now is just about surviving, and they know there are other teams that are very aware of their current position. And they've just got to make sure they don't give away kind of too much shields to other teams and don't have to use too many resources by taking damage themselves.
Zero's just kind of playing away from his two teammates a little bit here on the Valkyries. Obviously, she can use the jets to get back up if a little bit of damage is done. So smart to have that player doing the scouting, seeing if there's any damage that can be output by his team, any targets that are kind of caught in a position where they might be able to third party, put some damage down and pick up a few free KP. But there is that charge rifle again, this time coming from inside of the zone, I believe, instead of a little bit further away. Optic now, we're going to take our attention over to launch site, as that's where they find themselves right now, just crafting out a few med kits. And with this being a tough rotate for them all the way from Lava City, doesn't surprise me to see them taking their time here and thinking about just crafting, getting med kits, kind of walking things in and letting the lobby sort itself out before they try and find a space to push themselves into.
Yeah, space being the key word, because the majority of the lobby now is within the next circle. I can only count about 4 teams that are outside of it. So this is going to be a tough one for Optic Gaming, and I'm very curious as to where they try and place themselves. This Valkyrie ultimate is not going to take them to the circle. We know that, and they know that. They can only go a little bit further than Tree. They are flying towards another team. Okay, finally they get that info, and now this is a big decision. Do you try and fight it? No, you've just got to go under the tunnel and stay safe.
We'll be safe for now. By the way, Skittle Cake has evolved into Skittle Cake, just so everybody knows. So this could be his final form, which is a terrifying prospect for everybody else in the lobby. But CLG still holding down that truck, still holding down the bridge. DZ will be holding the bottom of the bridge. And outside of that, 100 Thieves trying to make their rotation as well from the northern side of all of this going on right now. Almir and Vaxlon doing a little bit of scouting. Scurry's kind of holding things down for them, making sure that nobody's going to peek over from the Hot Springs area. But 100 Thieves right on the edge of zone at the moment, Dan, and been a bit up and down for them, I would say, in the last 6 months. 100 Thieves, you know, LAN didn't have the performance they wanted. Maybe this is their opportunity to answer back in this split.
Yeah, I think that answering back is a big thing for a lot of these teams who didn't make, you know, the areas where they expected to. There's a lot of expectations that are put on shoulders from not just organizations, but from yourselves as well, right? Where you look at what you've been able to achieve previously as a team, and when you don't quite meet those expectations, you come back with a vengeance. And it does give people that passion that sometimes you need. You need a little kick up the backside from here and now, and maybe that's going to be enough here for 100 Thieves to really push them on in this split.
They're currently controlling quite a lot of space on this side of the zone. I'm very interested to see where the next ring pull is going to be, because that's going to give us a lot of information. On the map overhead at the moment, we can tell you there's a lot of teams at the north side of things around Landslide at the moment where 100 Thieves find themselves. It looks like the teams who are over at staging might have to make a little bit of a move, which is going to be very uncomfortable for them to do so. But as that zone starts to close, the information is going to be shared between numerous teams at the moment. The reinforced door is going to be just giving enough line of sight to poke through for the moment, and Team Inters maybe looking to live up to their name in a few seconds' time as they will try and push forward and maybe take out this team in the middle of Harvester.
Once you've got that info, I mean, it certainly could be a decision they make, but there's just so many teams around at the moment. It's such a big risk. You don't really want to be the first squad to initiate a fight. But Team Inters, I guess, as you say, by name, by nature, if anyone's going to do it, it seems like it would be more apparent that they are. But as you can see, circle's closing. Still a couple of teams outside of that. Optic being the ones who have to traverse the map a little bit more than others, but this is where the circle pool gets interesting. Okay.
CLG are in a good spot.
CLG are, everyone else is not.
So we're going to finish up on those tracks then. Very, very interesting. DZ in a very good spot as well, though. You have to say, playing under that bridge, they will be in that zone. But all the teams who are at landslide, all the teams that are staging, was comfy for now, but you've just been evicted. You're going to have to move and try and find a way in towards that zone. And this is a very, very unforgiving zone. You have that high ground area that's been held down by CLG. That's going to be fiercely contested. The good thing for them is they've got the caustic, so they can really hold down that truck and try and disturb any teams that try and push onto them. For teams that are in the surrounding area, I wonder now, just seeing that zone pool, if the play call is going to be okay. This is going to be a tough placement game. It's time for to look to some KP.
Oh, Dropping Gaming using the wombo combo. It's the Seer plus the Catalyst, and they're able to shred with the wall hacks, but they haven't got a knock just yet.
Missile Swarm's going to go in as well, just to try and keep those players low. Stomp is going to throw a couple of grenades down, but some shots coming in from a distance as well, and that's what happens when the lobby gets very, very busy, and it's Drug-Free who are on the other side of this at the moment. Impulse trying to do what he can. Sorcerer has fallen already, but the Peacekeeper at close range, it hits hard, it hits true, but you've got to make sure you connect, and that one isn't going to connect, and now Impulse is left on his own.
Remember, Drug-Free went back-to-back in day one when they played, but it doesn't look like that's going to be happening because there's far too many shields for Dropping Gaming here. This would have to be a miraculous finish to this fight if they were going to survive, which they will not. Drug-Free go down in 19th position. So all those tweets that we were talking about, all the controversy that was happening with the changes, is it starting to take effect? We'll have to see as the day goes on.
I like how you like a little bit of a drama alert update now.
I do, yeah. That's kind of my thing now. I kind of live for these. I just want the drama, all right? I want to find what these players. I want to see what they eat, how they live, how they breathe.
That's not drama. Joking. That's diet.
Oh yeah, diet. Yeah, okay.
Both start with D, but very different. Anyway. Back to Tripods inside a Harvester and having to fight their way out at the moment. You can see that zone pool's not been great for them, but Jen's going to get a little bit of flesh damage. But there's a team above them as well. There's multiple teams in the vicinity, which is why Tripods find it so difficult to push out and capitalize on that damage. But some good shots coming in on the high ground. Jen does get that first knock onto LG. This fight has gone on for quite some time here, and we'll be able to jump into a listening now with Tripods to see how it falls out.
Popping a med.
Might be a good time to back off, boys. I don't know.
We can back off from out here.
All right,
go out left, go underneath and go out left.
Yep.
30. Come on, take my pathing.
Yep. Get in the ravine.
Yep. No, we need to. All right, go in the ring, go ravine.
Oh.
Slide off.
Keep working up. There's a dude, people in front. We need to fight this. We need to kill this.
Shoot. 45, 90.
Crack one.
41 below.
I'm standing. Use the right pocket.
They're all cracked. We got this, boys.
I got him. They're dead. Just get in. Play in.
You're in here. Use my pocket.
Down.
Up here. They're up there deep.
Look in front. He's the shot in front. Crack, Gibby. Watson's the 42.
Nice, play low key.
We need to pressure this. I know. We need to pressure this. When our wall goes down, we're gonna be fucked. They're bottom.
I'm nading it.
I need to pop med. They're above us. I'm popping them in. You're safe in my corner.
Knock.
They might shoot our horizon if they throw it on us. I have no bats.
Just talk.
Dropping bats. I have a knock right here on the Gibby.
Go over to this Gibby team. Give me thirst.
I have a knock on the Gibby right here in the corner.
Play slow.
Any OT cells?
No.
Back on me, maybe. Get back to me if you need.
Right.
Back up a little bit.
I got my kill.
50 on my wall. Nice. Just play low key. Okay, play low key now. Play low key. Just show. Don't show.
Oh, we're not wall.
Alright.
No, I don't have a wall.
Shoot this guy.
Block that.
Where is he shooting from?
Like far away to charge.
Second story.
Right.
How's he just?
I'm gonna hold. 80 on him. I'm gonna pop bat.
I'm healing.
I see you, kid. I look they're above too. I'm at 85 on my wall. I think I'll have it for this rotate, but
It's a good thing I believe in second chances.
You see it pop like a bat or something, or a med.
I'm
They're on
trying.
the right. Don.
Bend 94.
Yeah, they're on the right. We have to shoot right, G.
All right.
You want me to see your ult?
They naded
I
us.
don't think we can. I don't think, there's no point. Put in the wall.
Just go, G. Just
Shoot
run
that
left.
wall, yeah.
You're good. They're not looking over.
No. I'm at dotted zone.
Fuck, man.
Fuck.
Good try.
Well, it'll be tripods are falling out. The listening, of course, supplied by our wonderful friends over at WD Black. But it was a tough spot to find themselves in there, Dan, and they just couldn't make anything work. They were being held out by NRG so successfully.
Yeah, this is what happens when you've got this many teams that are within the circle. If you are arriving late, everyone's going to be seeing you. Dropping Gaming now making their way in. CCC get eliminated, but Dropping Gaming actually will find somewhere to play. This is the difference. If you can do the damage, if you can find your way in, you might be healthy enough to actually take a fight.
NRG in a fight as well. LG trying to push up. Is NRG trying to take the pieces that have fallen their way? But at the moment, it's not looking good for them. NRG will be eliminated from the lobby, and Luminosity, they will hold strong. And Optic also fell on their rotation. A few teams have fallen. Some of the bigger names that we were talking about. 11 squads now remaining. Still a huge amount of squads alive here, Dan. But LG, we talked about how they needed a performance today. We talked about how their day one was not something they'll be too happy with. Well, one of the most consistent teams that we had from Split 1. This is looking like a good first game for them. And no surprise to see once again Exit finding their way towards an endgame.
Yeah, you talk about consistent teams, you talk about macro. Exit are definitely one of the teams we have to mention. 100 Thieves looking to try and finish off Glitch Energy, and they will do so. Scurry's still down, but they've managed to get at least the crates to work with here so they can get him back up before the 35 seconds pass, and they're going to have to move in. Down to our 10 squads then. So one placement point turns into 2 placement points for all of these squads, so they've done at least that. They've got the bare minimum, I would say, is what you want to try and search for when it comes to placement. But Exit, Mark, they are slap bang in the middle of this circle, which isn't always a good thing because you are going to at least been spotted out by several other teams. But with the amount of damage they're doing, the amount of presence they have right now, it's so tough for any other squad to even look at them.
I mean, Fun said, give me your purple shield. I'll get a red myself in a few seconds' time. He's threading the needle through that truck with a charge rifle, really doing big damage, forcing LG, I believe it is, to have to make a play. The Catalyst Wall's going to go down. That doesn't stop Fun whatsoever, but now the Zero is going to be forced. You can see Nocturnal took a huge amount of damage, which means they now will not have that available for quite some time. But what it does do is it gives them a little bit of a defensive base to play with. No one can push Exit without them knowing, but here come 100 Thieves. They just arrive on the doorstep right behind Exit.
Yeah, are they going to wipe their feet would be the biggest question, because it's one of those scenarios where a lot of teams would have seen them coming on in. It looks like they've got away with it right now. Dropping Gaming get eliminated. LG have also lost one as well. Exit have to slightly back off, but Exit planned for this. They knew they had the wall to play with, and they just backed themselves in, but there's someone above them.
Managed to find a corner to deny the LOS. Fun's going to have the time to pop the battery here, and Exit will be healthy, but they have to be so aware of 100 Thieves. So aware. But look at the kill feed. All of a sudden, LG are doing the work for them. Survival, the name of the game here for Exit, because Luminosity have gone down, but they did so much damage, which has allowed Exit now to survive on this side of zone. Will they hit a Valkyl? What's the next play here to try and involve themselves on this game? They smoke off the line of sight above. They're going to throw the bang ult down as well, and it looks like Exit maybe want to take the fight down on this low ground.
Well, Exit just using every little lip of cover they can, and now trying to take the space just so they can get out of dodge of Furia that are above them. And remember, there's still 7 squads. Even though we're only really seeing 3 at the moment, there is still 4 more straggling squads somewhere that are making a difference and are going to definitely influence this last circle. Dark Zero being one of them. They had this bridge a long time ago, Mark, but now they have to move away from it.
Yeah, now what's the play? That's the question. Is it going to be a Valkyl? Can they find somewhere to Valkyl from? That's the real question here. But there's going to be a couple of teams down on the low ground. They have to switch their attention now, and it's going to be Jim Burton who flies in, does a decent amount of damage, should be able to get the knock, but Sharky and Zero, they're getting fried themselves, and all of a sudden, Dark Zero, got to be careful. Rise will go down. Sharky has fallen, though, but with the clearing of this side of the map, Dark Zero will be able to survive, will be able to stick this res, and will be able to survive towards this endgame.
Just about as well before the circle starts to tickle their backsides. Sharky's going to get back up. Exit is still holding the middle. 100 Thieves are back up to a full 3, and 100 Thieves are going to make this very difficult for Dark Zero. They're going to have the angles on them, but this is where you have to split your attentions in a way where you have decision making down to a T. The IGL needs to know who you're focusing on, why you're focusing on them, and who is the priority to take down first.
We can see in the kill feed that Vaxlon managed to re-knock Zero with an Arc Star, just throwing it around that corner, which means that DZ are now down to a 2. They've got to force their way around this corner somehow. I'm not sure what the play is, to be honest, from Dark Zero. Xset's still alive as well. Nocturnal taking a big chunk of damage once more. But you get the feeling that this is going to be a fight that's influenced by either 100 Thieves or Xset. It looks like on the high ground, all these teams at some point will have to drop. Pandas is going to go up high as well. Fun decides now it's time to go, and Xset want to take this fight now to 100 Thieves. If they win this one, a real opportunity for them to close out game number 1. CLG gone, Noxus gone as well. 100 Thieves holding their ground, though. It's all up to Sykes.
Yeah, Sykes has got a lot to do, but from above, there's still damage being done by the likes of Furia. So 100 Thieves have lost 1. At least Scurry can get back up with a bat, but needs help. Omnu now, the last remaining player. Xset are able to do their job, but Dark Zero get eliminated. Whilst we're seeing damage done from these high ground positions, it's all about Furia right now.
It's all about Furia, it's all about the KP, and it's all about the return of his Watson dropping into this crate to clean up the final bit of damage, and Furia will re-announce themselves to the Pro League in North America with a huge win in game number 1.
Well, we wanted to see, can Furia show us what they're made of? Can they show that they can get it done still in this meta? And I think they've proved that here in match number 1 already. An incredible amount of KP, and that final circle was played to perfection. They didn't just jump on any of the other teams that were up top. They were well aware that the 2 teams that were down below them, if one of them had won that fight and been healthy, they would have been a real threat to winning that game. So Furia kept their eyes on it, made sure they focused, hoped that everything would play out as it was meant to above them, and then they were just able to clean up the pieces.
Great performance from Furia. We'll bring Glitter back in to talk about that game, because we were saying Furia, not a good first match day for them, but a perfect start here for their second one.
I mean, we saw this happen in EMEA as well. Some of the teams that we called out for struggling in opening weekend just bouncing back with an absolute fury. So, Ansa, you can go take a break for now. Gaskin, I'm going to bring you back in with me so we can talk about everything that we just saw from that first match. I mean, we talked about DZ potentially being a team that can snowball, and they just had a really strong first game. We talked about the consistency out of Xset, and we see Xset coming through with a very high finish. Some good and some surprises.
Yeah, I think that when you look at North America and you look at who's had success and had consistency so far, there's expectations of which teams are going to be in those final circles. And maybe Furia wasn't one of those based off how they've performed so far and maybe some of the struggles they've had, but demonstrating that when they do get to those final circles, right, they are going to be a team that knows how to play them. They've been there time and time again, like they've been there before. They know how it's done. And that's why they were such a threat when they were at their very peak. And I think if we can see Furia return to a form what they once were, like they are going to be a team that everyone should be scared of, because the amount of damage output that they are capable of, the consistency of the shots they put down, they are unbelievable to watch when they're in some of these engagements.
Especially when we combine that with a much more patient playstyle that we just saw there in the end zone, waiting everybody out from the high ground and able to close that one out. But we're going to run back through the highlights from this game, because specifically Drug Free going out way earlier than we would have liked.
Way earlier. I think considering how well Drug Free performed in match day 1, where they had back-to-back wins, it worries me a little bit for them. They took a 3v3 engagement that was isolated as well, and I would have expected Drug Free to win that one, but it just didn't quite go their way. As we look back at some of the highlights, the likes of Tripods, for example, they struggled to get into the zone because there were so many teams who had already rotated early as well. This was a very early rotating circle. A lot of teams had an idea of where it was going to be, but when we saw the split happen between landslide and between staging, it suddenly meant everyone had a desperate attempt to try and get into the middle, and teams like Xset, like 100 Thieves, who were able to find one of these central spots, they were picking up KP because of it.
Just shooting people's toes underneath that truck. Fun was just decimating with the charge rifle. DZ did a fantastic job of holding their position under the bridge here, but Xset, at one point, they got dropped on by 100 Thieves and backed off so smartly, able to hold a little bit of the corner and kind of let everybody reset. I think LG was coming in trying to help, kind of helping a little bit with that situation, but the battle that went on below between these two was kind of epic.
It was epic indeed, but I credited Furia for it before. They kept an eye on it. They made sure they were splitting the difference, watching what was happening kind of behind them, but also having one player just overlooking what was going on down below. And because they were able to pick up that damage, look at the amount of kills they got. Glitter, 11 kills, a 23-point game. This is Furia at their very best.
I mean, not surprising to see a team like Fury able to put that many kills up on the board, but it is nice to see a little bit of a return. I mean, to be fair, Dark Zero as well, 11 kills for them. They didn't necessarily have those placement points, but they did a great job of keeping everybody off of their spot for a very long time and end up with a 16-point game. Considering where everybody else above them is, that is not too shabby. Xset really playing for those placement points. And as we move down, you know what? I'm gonna take the 5 kills from Luminosity because we did call them out a little bit at the beginning of today.
Yeah, I think that they'll be happy enough that they were able to have an okay start. You, on average, if you can get, 7-8 points each game, you're gonna be pretty happy across the board. And as long as that is your consistency, it's when you start to get the 0-point games, the 2-point games, where you start to scratch your head a bit and say, okay, well, now we need a big game. And I mean, we've got, what, 2 teams there? They've got 11 kills. Dark Zero and Fury are both farming. Xset with an incredible zonal position as well. We know that Xset's macro seems to be on point at the moment, but credit where credit's due. 100 Thieves, they arrived late. They found a position. They fought for their position. And boy, did they fight well. Very impressed with what I've seen from a lot of these teams.
And as we take a look at the second page here and see where the rest of our teams shook out, like we said, we already kind of touched on Drug Free, but also, I'm gonna say it, a little bit surprised with NRG, especially when we talk about the fact that that was a zone that was theirs, right? That was something that they should have been able to be comfortable with.
What's gone wrong, they will be assessing it for sure, because it's just one of those situations where a circle is coming towards you and you are quite central. You expect a little bit more, but you've got to look at the loot situation. Perhaps they weren't comfortable with the guns, maybe the loot wasn't quite right, and that can really influence how the rest of the game is going to go.
I'm not worried. They're a team that's very capable of bouncing back, but that's the first match of the day for NA in the books. We're going to be sending it to a short break, and when we return, we'll be jumping straight into match 2, so don't go anywhere. My VLC went...
WD Black, the official storage partner of the Apex Legends Global Series.
Welcome back, everybody, to day 3 of Split 2 for the ALGS NA region. Match number 1's in the books, and match number 2 is already getting underway. So we are going to be jumping straight into it. Although, Gaskin, I gotta say, I loved that tweet that we saw from Nocturnal pop up during the break.
Yeah, I think that, social media is both a blessing and a curse at sometimes, but just being able to see these players and their live reactions is one of the best things about it. But as you say, already into the game, already get circle information. Are we going to see OG and LG take a fight? No. Does CCE have their contest at Countdown? No. Okay, so it seems like everyone is learning that contests are bad, and that's always good. They've learned far faster, it would seem, than EMEA did a little bit earlier on. And circle-wise, it's not too dissimilar. It is somewhat an western zone, excuse me. Perhaps we could go towards Lava Fisher, could end up in staging. We really need that zone 2 info.
Maybe a little bit of a redemption opportunity for some of our teams that were on the western side of the map and maybe didn't exactly have the game play out the way that they had wanted to. But as we take a look at that zone, we'll see that a couple of these teams are going to be quite comfortable, specifically NRG, who's already started to make a little bit of a move over towards Mirage à Trois.
Yeah, the move from NRG is the biggest tell for me before we even saw the dotted line of the next zone where it's going to be. Because they had the console, because they had the ring information, NRG's move here would suggest we're probably finishing at Mirage à Trois. And you can see GE also making their way down. This is one of my favorite end circles to watch, especially now the Mirage Voyage is there, because it adds a little extra layer to this final circle. Before, it was a little bit of a slum. There was only a couple of buildings. There wasn't much areas to play, but now you've got so much more variety with the high ground as well. If it does end there, which is what some players are predicting, then it could be very exciting. Or it could shift a little bit further south. We'll have to wait and see.
As we could see there before we switched on with Fury, though, lots of teams already trying to make sure they hold down some real estate in the area. CLG had moved on in. Obviously, BBB will have a very close rotation to that as well. But Furia all the way up at Climatizer, hanging out here. Obviously, though, winning game number 1. We talked about them a lot. A little bit of a return to glory here.
Maybe. I'd like to see a return to glory. I'd like to see Furia show us what they're made of. Because when Furia were at the best, they looked almost unstoppable. It was only for, you know, the trials and tribulations of other teams and maybe their zone performances that really shut Furia down. But similarly to what we've seen in EMEA with how good Fire Beavers have been, Furia were that team, right? Furia were the team that used to run through lobbies. They would decimate anyone that was in their path. And if they can find that same form, then the rest of the lobby should be terrified indeed. And I really hope they find that same form.
Which I guess then does tie into the conversation that you already started very early on about match point format. Even if they are super aggressive and can clean up that KP, are they able to close out the win? Was the more conservative play at the end of game 1 potentially indicative of maybe a slight shift in that direction?
I think so. I think that you have to learn about what the meta is doing, and perhaps they have looked and assessed at what's been going wrong for them, and now they are knowing that they just need to know when to switch up a little bit, when to change the pace of play. And I've said that about a few teams historically throughout ALGS. They might be an excellent killing team, an excellent slaying team, but they just need to find that extra little oomph so they can also play it slow in those final circles. If you can combine the two, you suddenly become the perfect team. Speaking of perfect teams, can Optic Gaming maybe find themselves as a perfect squad? They are hunting down a team right now.
Looks like they're trying to get some early KP on the board here. As you can see, Dropped has some enemies in his sights. People deciding to jump inside, though, and get some cells off, give themselves a full amount of health before they make this push. But unfortunately, they might not have that luxury. Lots of back and forth here. A little bit of a game of ring around the rosy, and they're going to try and clean this one up fast because now they are playing inside the storm.
Nasura's gone down, as has Impulse, and this is bad news indeed when you lose 2 that quickly. Optic Gaming maybe sensed there was a little bit of weakness. Sorcerer is going to be the last remaining player and should escape, and at least maybe there is going to be the opportunity for Drug Free to get back into things. But remember, Drug Free, a team who had that impressive start to day 1, they had all the drama on the social medias, and now they're struggling in games 1 and 2 here in match day 3.
Hopefully they're going to be able to bounce back.
Hopefully.
After these first 2 matches, and maybe Rat for some placement points, at least for now. But Optic, that's going to help them a little bit. Not only clear out around them for their rotation now, but also give them a little bit of loot, get some points on the board with those 2 kills they were able to pick up, and then continue on their merry way. But now we get to check in with Xset, potentially deciding to go for a fight with CCE right now. Xset, though, a team that we hyped up at the beginning of the day for their consistency. They've already shown that in the first match of the day. Will they do it again in match number 2?
Yeah, it's about where they go here. At the moment, they're just north of Lava Fissure, and they're trying to get a little ways in to force themselves through this POI and maybe force another team out of a position so that they can take it. I cannot stress enough how impressive Xset were in their opening match day. The decisions that were being made, the rotations that were being called, as well as the actual engagements that happened and how they were executing them. At times, they looked flawless. And speaking to Hodzik, he says they want to be considered one of the best teams in the world, right? They want to have that respect that maybe arguably they don't have right now. But I'm telling you what, they will have earned it by the end of this split if they continue to play the way they did in that initial match day.
Listen, I know it was only 1 day, but I did say in my opinion that they are the hands down the best team in their group right now. Now they just need to show us that they are the best team in the lobby, as long as they continue to have those types of performances. Right now, though, making sure they're making all of the right calls here. They've got CCE on one side of them, 100 Thieves also in their sights, just holding down this real estate right on the edge for now before they decide to push him, because we can see it. There are a lot of people that have already made their way into where the zone is.
And interestingly as well, just seeing the zone information now that that has pulled, if anyone has a ring console and if anyone's able to get that ring info, we are going south. So the Mirage Etoile is not going to be where we finish. Xset are going to have that information. That's why they were fighting so heavily here at Lava Fissure, so they could get some information. They don't, of course, get ring information because it's not a ring console, but they will get the survey beacon, which gives them the scan of where all the players currently are on the map. It will give them an idea, but this is the problem with survey beacons. They now may get a false sense of security where they think it's going to be a Mirage Etoile finish. They do not know that actually is going to be pulling a little further south down towards the area near staging.
And then by the time they find out, so many other people will have already rotated in, grabbed whatever available real estate there is, that they might have a really rough push into any sort of a safe area. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out for them, but we can see some of these teams already making their move, drop in gaming here on a rotate, making their way through the choke. Hopefully no one's waiting on the other side of it for them, but they seem safe for now.
Yeah, safe for now. I mean, they've got LG to their right in Harvester, which I think they're aware of. They've just got to be careful they don't expose themselves too much. That's one of the things with a lot of these rotations in World's Edge. You do get a lot of cover. I think that's why a lot of people prefer World's Edge over Stormpoint, is because it's a little bit more cover to play with, and traditionally rotations are fairly simple when it comes to it because they've been playing it for years, and you don't have to go for anything too experimental. But I will say that as long as you are aware of what teams are around you, then you should always have a plan B that's available. Whereas sometimes on Stormpoint, there just isn't a plan B. You have to force yourself either through a team or over a team.
A little bit of poke there coming out with the charge rifle as they just hold that area for now. And we can see BBB, who's down by Thermal, have set themselves up well right now because they'll be at least on the safe side of the zone. No one really trying to come through and rotate from behind, while everyone else that thought it was going to be up by Mirage Etoile is now forced to rotate from the north down to the south, and they're all going to get super congested in on each other.
Yeah, I mean, it could be one that just finishes slightly north of BBB, or it could be a little bit closer towards staging Mirage Etoile. I think this is a very tough circle for a lot of these teams to try and work out on the shift. I mean, it's going to be a big shift afterwards where a lot of teams are going to learn quite late on, and maybe too late, and it is going to be mayhem at Mirage Etoile, I tell you. It is going to be every single team trying to fight for any little bit of scrap of cover to then get to the next circle. And we're probably going to see 8, 9, 10 teams all eliminated at once. And it is going to be, I mean, from our point of view, very fun to watch. From the players' point of view, it's going to be one of the least enjoyable experiences they'll have today.
You know, of all places, though, for this level of chaos to go down, I feel like Mirage Etoile is the perfect location.
Yeah, it seems apt, right? But that's all what Mirage would want, I'm sure. If he has a POI, he just wants everything to be full of lunacy, and that's certainly what we're going to have.
Furia now still on the outskirts of everything as they start to make their way through Countdown. They might end up being okay because of how far behind they will be everyone else. They might actually miss the mass exodus that will occur when all of these teams start fighting each other.
Well, yeah, I mean, Furia traditionally are an edge team. They will play and just naturally get that zone information when it's presented to them. Maybe not through ring consoles, perhaps, but as they are still in the red, once they escape Countdown, they're going to get the info that it is going to pull ever so slightly away from maybe the area they think of. And it's always a tough way to play because if there are going to be other teams who are also busy on the edge, then you might not be able to find the success. But here comes Luminosity. They want to take a push. They want to get involved, and they will absolutely beam the team inside.
Ooh, tripods. Now finding themselves on the opposite end of Luminosity's guns right now and instantly taking down 2. So that's going to be rough for tripods. LG, though, I mean, this was just instant. In, out, cleaning this up really fast, not trying to delay this any more than they need to. However, across the way, some people do have their eyes looking up. Tripods does go down.
Yeah, LG are just going to have to be careful, as you said. Another team that are in the area is now Dropping Gaming going to make their way to the southern side of this map, as they probably have that info now that it is not going to be in Mirage à Trois, and all those teams are starting to move. So there is the circle that I was speaking about earlier. So all the teams that are committed to Mirage à Trois and the buildings just below it are now having to move. NRG thankfully played slightly southern on the side, so they won't have to move as much, but they're going to be held out by Oxygen, by CLG, whereas the likes of Rise, and you can see BBB down there, they predicted this one a little bit earlier.
Drop-In Gaming still trying to fight inside of this building right now. Lots of visual clutter, and BBB does go down. Maybe not necessarily prepared to have somebody so aggressively just push inside and try to take that position away from them. But now Drop-In Gaming have a nice little spot for themselves to hold. Nobody to worry about around them, and lots of loot boxes at their disposal.
That is massive from Drop-In Gaming. BBB would have thought they were sat pretty, they were comfortable, they thought they owned the south of the zone. No one's predicted the circle, right? But Drop-In Gaming swoop on in, take that spot off of them, and now they own the southern side of that map as it stands. But there is still room for other teams to rotate around that way, so they just have to make sure they keep an eye on things and don't allow anyone to walk up on them as freely as they've walked up on BBB. Dark Zero making their rotation from the northern side. They're under a lot of pressure right now, trying to use the Dark Veil to try and stay alive at the moment, and at least they were able to all get their bats off. Otherwise, this could have been very ugly. It's CCE who are putting pressure from above.
Yeah, that was definitely a little bit of a rough rotation away there. They had to walk around those rocks and were just right in the middle of the sights of CCE, but CCE doesn't end up punishing them too badly for that. They do escape and get a decent amount of space away from them that will give them time to reset, while CCE now looks towards the skies to see which teams are going to be flying in. And I believe that was Furia, and Dark Zero now is also going for that rotation, and this is where things will start to get hectic.
Yeah, Dark Zero may be hoping that this one's going to be finishing over towards staging. It is going to be a 50-50 bet from a lot of these teams. Does it go staging, or does it go south of the mountain over towards thermal? Wherever it ends up, there are only then 2 chokeholds that you have to go through to get to the other side. So once you have committed to one side, you are probably banking on it being that side. As I say that, there is the next circle. You can see the information. Furia have already got it, and it is going to be predominantly on this staging side. So those teams who are on the southern are going to have to move now. Furia did make the right call, but you can see they're down to just 2. A lot of teams have lost 1 player on the way, and they might have to just try and fight tooth and nail as a duo here.
Yeah, this is about to get really tough for some of these teams that haven't already nailed some sort of space down that they can hold. You can see Furia did fly in and end up getting instantly punished for it. They're now down to 2. SCS is the one that's putting in a lot of work against them. And Furia's just not going to have a safe place to really retreat to either. SCS wants to own this real estate for right now, and no one's pushing them off of it.
A Gibby heirloom. An heirloom I've not seen in quite some time. But SCS pulling out the old tricks. It's going to be Wraith, it's going to be Watson, it's going to be Gibby. And maybe this circle could work out for them. Can the bubble be the difference maker? But here comes the push. The Horizon ultimate drops down. The black hole is so tough to try and escape from, as SCS just backing off, hoping to use those fences to their advantage. But unfortunately, Crust has gone down. So is Slayer. And Xenox just has to try and stay alive.
At the hands of Luminosity, and I love that this is the type of aggression we're seeing out of them right now. I mean, they've always been capable of this. It started off a little bit rough in this split, but that is what we want out of Luminosity. They have pushed through multiple squads now, and they're looking very good doing it.
As soon as I saw the Horizon, I was pretty sure it was going to be LG on the other side. We already saw the aggression when they pushed the building, and they utilized the black hole then to suck one of the players in towards the door and then do the damage. This is why Horizon is such a powerful legend to use, and sure, she's fallen out of the meta a little bit because of the nerfs that happened, and you don't necessarily get the consistency with your aim when you are in the gravity lift, but still, I think the black hole, one of the most powerful ultimates to just destroy a team and catch them off guard. But 33 seconds until round 4 closes. This is when we're going to start to see the kill feed light up, because there's a lot of teams who have to move from Mirage à Trois now down towards staging.
One of those teams will be NRG. They are right on the edge trying to decide the right time to get themselves in a better spot. But there are so many teams around this area that the push that they will have to make in, while also watching their backs for anyone who's behind them, could get a little bit messy for NRG. Meanwhile, CCE right under their bridge, looking down below them and starting to clean up people's blood. I see LG popping up in the kill feed. Luminosity goes down, OXG goes down, and this is what you were saying, Dan. Everything's about to kick off.
Every team just kind of pumped themselves into the staging area then, just to try and find any sort of nook and cranny where they could stay alive. And actually, more teams stayed alive than I thought would. But because there were so many squads around, I think people were reluctant to take the fights when they were presented to them, because they don't want to poke out, expose themselves, invite any sort of third party, or take any unnecessary damage. Because look at CLG right now, underneath NRG. I think NRG are aware of it. I hope NRG are aware of it. And if they're not, then CLG might just get away with it. But you can see Sweet keeps poking around the corner, which would suggest they have an idea that there is going to be players there. But no seer to work with on NRG, so they don't have the heartbeat sensor.
Sweet definitely knows. We saw him debate throwing that arc star down there just to see what happened, but lots of pings coming down right now. So it looks like they may be switching their focus here just for a second, deciding if that's the place that they want to take, or if there's someone that they're going to need to push off of that rock right now. You can see some of those tracers right ahead of them. I mean, NRG are kind of in a fantastic spot. They somehow managed to not have CLG at their backs, but below them with no one else around on the northern edge of the circle right now. So this could play out well for them.
Nades come in. Sweet will find an angle, and now this is where the collapse happens. Just have to be careful on his backside that he doesn't get shot by anyone else. But NRG seem to have an idea of how they want to play this one. Seems like a good time to jump into a listening with NRG.
Come back. Force
There's a
them
team
the other
playing the
way.
spot. There's a team playing the spot
we're
early.
lock in late from our side.
Okay,
We need to shoot them. They're on our side. They're on our side.
Okay. Seer crack. 1 HP Seer.
Shoot them
60
across,
plus
Gil.
Seer.
Shoot your gun.
Yeah, I cracked one.
He might be trying to fly up on our left. I don't have Gen for 18.
All on the rock. They're all on that rock. We're walking in and playing blue crate. We have to play the blue crate and then
Okay,
third party
I have
left
Gen
side.
15%. We need to wait. We need to look left.
Yeah, I know. I need to make sure no one peeks us from the Dorito though. I'm gonna throw thermites in the Dorito. Is there did we have a low bolt anywhere?
I need a bat. He just beamed me on the
I'm
Dorito.
frying them in the Dorito.
We need to look left. The team is gonna
Crossing
be
the blue crate now. Crossing the blue crate now.
Looking at us on the left.
Almost cracked both. I'm walking up on this. Gotta play close on this.
on me right here. On me, on us.
I'm dead from behind. Behind you.
Bro, like.
Oh, well, it just doesn't end up well, and you heard a lot of the comms just shoot your gun, please. Let's do the damage, as NRG are not able to escape. But now we're down to what, 8 squads here, Glitter? People starting to fall now as they realize there is not much space to play in this next circle.
That was rough. I mean, they were trying to focus CLG in front of them, GE below them. They had people at their backs, and that was a rough spot to be in for NRG. I don't really know what they could have done to make that any better. Either way, this is what was bound to happen with how many teams were so on top of each other. CLG somehow managing to survive from being down below in the crosshairs of NRG, escaping that and now pushing themselves up into a solid spot on the outskirts of everything. They've got some good sight lines on the teams around them, and they might be able to do some work here.
Yeah, everyone just trying to find a little bit of space at the moment. Glitch Energy are going to make their move with the Dark Veil cover. CLG being pinned back by Dig, and CCE are also in a position under the bridge. This is a similar circle to what I thought was going to be in one of the previous games today, but no, Glitch Energy are having to fight their hardest in this little train car, and they are doing the damage as well. Dig are getting obliterated.
Getting a little bit of help from GE onto Dig as well. Xset actually goes down in the meantime to DZ on the other side of the zone, while Glitch Energy comes out on top, finding themselves a little bit of loot there, and lots of things are popping off below the bridge right now.
Well, when we talk about teams who know their rotations, who know where to be at the right time, it's going to be Dark Zero. And not only are they in one of the right positions, but they're doing the damage at the right time as well. And this is arguably one of the strongest positions for now, because they have so much cover on the back end. But it's about where they go when that circle actually closes. 4 teams now remain. Make it 3.
I mean, they're just dropping like flies at this point, but DZ still finding themselves alive. Massive consistency out of them from match 1 to match 2. A little bit of that snowball effect. They are holding down low, pretty well with Team Inters above them. I think there's still GE down there as well that they'll have to be focusing on, but right now just free damage coming in from Team Inters.
Yeah, this is Team Inter's game without a shadow of a doubt. DZ were down low. They're not going to be able to get up high, and this is going to be one of your old school games if you want to heal off, but it's not going to be heal off because they go into the red and say, let's just finish him myself. Dark Zero goes down. Team Inter's now, it's just a matter of waiting here, Lauren.
You know what? I will take it. This was a really good job of just smart decision making and patience coming in from Team Inters. They know it. You can see the emotes coming out because they just have to wait for this to end as they will be taking home the second match of the day. I love the hearts. Okay, little bit of hearts there for Team Inters.
Give us a little bit of a flair ending. That's what I like. It's always a tough ending to watch when it does just come out and the zone is going to be the last one that kills someone. But, you know, if they can put an emote down, that always makes me happy. But it was pretty free for Inters as soon as we saw the battle be extended a little bit too long down low. If Dark Zero could have finished the kills a little bit quicker, maybe they could have returned to the high ground. But because Glitch Energy were then holding out Dark Zero, it just meant that Inters just walked on in and finished off the pieces. It was very easy for them from that point.
Yeah, and they were the team that I believe was at the backs of NRG too, causing lots of trouble for them. So onset, match 2 in the books. I mean, was it what you expected?
It was an interesting zone. I think NRG, I want to talk about NRG a little bit because I feel like there's 2 zones that have favored them heavily and they haven't made the most of the opportunities presented to them. I think in that game, they had a really good position. They had a really good spot, but CLG being down on that low ground and having Caustic just slowed that fight down time after time. You could saw Sweet tried to swing on it. He knew they had to kill CLG to clear that side of the zone to give them somewhere to play, but the Caustic gas would slow it down, and if it takes 2-3 seconds extra to get that fight done and dusted and clear that side, all of a sudden, then it allows someone else to come in and apply damage to you, and that's exactly what happened. So I think NRG is almost surprising. Sometimes they're one of those teams who make the decisions quickest. Like, this is the team we have to kill them now, but it just felt like there was just a moment, whether it was the fact that they had to go up against the Caustic there that was slowing the fight down, or maybe there was a little bit of indecision, but they were in a great spot and just didn't make the most of it. And that's 2 zones in a row now that you would imagine NRG should come out with a huge amount of points, and maybe not the amount of points they would have liked coming out of those 2 zones.
Yeah, it was definitely a little bit chaotic there for them with all the teams that had also already kind of picked up a spot around them. And we talked about that on the cast. It almost felt like they didn't know which one they wanted to focus in that moment. Ended up being their downfall. But we are still seeing DZ finishing in some really high placements, getting lots of kills on the board for themselves as well. And with back-to-back matches like that, after the performance that they had the first play day, I mean, they're starting to look really strong, Dan.
Yeah, I think they're a real threat, and I guess that's what we should expect, right? We've got to the point now, we've learned these teams are just good at the video game, right? They do the video games very well. They've got to the point where they've been able to analyze the competition. They've been able to analyze what they do themselves, and they make sure they are consistently progressing. That's the important factor, is you don't hit a plateau. You don't just get to a point where you accept you're good, but you're always looking to improve. And I think all of the teams that are staying at the top of NA have consistently been looking at videotape. They've not just managed to just relax and accept where they are. They always want to be better, and I'm happy about that.
You know, to be fair, we also saw a decent performance out of Drop In Gaming, and I think that they had some decent KP in the first match as well. So something that we saw in EMEA, some of the teams that we expect to do well are still doing well, but then today I feel like we're seeing a resurgence. Obviously, even Team Inters just pulling out the win here of some of these teams that need some points on the board, onset really doing that for themselves.
They are, and I think everyone needs to as well. I mentioned how, you know, coming to the season, it felt like EMEA was a little bit top heavy. NA not quite so. It was really difficult to qualify for the playoffs for everyone. I mean, some of the teams that missed out, you had Furia miss out, you had Optic miss out. You know, that's history now, but it is becoming tighter and tighter. And all these teams that are fighting their way through to be a part of the Pro League, they want to make noise and they want to be good at this game and be qualifying for that LAN event, because that's what they play for here. And I just want to quickly touch on Dark Zero as well, because this is the thing that makes this performance so impressive from them so far on World's Edge is that in their first game day on World's Edge, they were 17th, 16th, and 10th. It was Stormpoint that saved them with 2 wins. And now they're coming in on World's Edge and dominating in the way they have. With Stormpoint ahead, this could be a big, big day for DZ.
Oh, I like the way you're thinking. If they've managed to nail down their performances on both of these maps, they will be absolutely terrifying. But let's go through these highlights yet again, Gaskin, because a lot happened in this match.
Yeah, it was one of those where everyone thought the circle was going to end in a certain location, and they all got the shock horror when the circle moved away. That's Apex Legends in a nutshell, right? And there were a few teams that perhaps are going to kick themselves a little bit because they gave up areas that were very commanding ones. Even if you played the southern side or the northern side, there were still areas to get into the final circle. But unfortunately, because they maybe gave up some of those positions, they weren't even given the opportunity to do so. Those who stayed within staging, either they were forced to stay in staging or they just maybe had a better clue of where the circle was going to be going. They were rewarded for that. I mean, you could see the fights that were happening in staging because of it. Because when you do hold the building, it means you can drop down low and get into a spot to comfortably pick out a top 5. But to win that game, you had to come from high ground. And there was lots of fights from all the teams that came from Mirage à Trois to try and win that high ground. And in the end, it was Team Intus who got into that prime position.
And speaking of a lot of those fights too, Onset, we talked about it a little bit, but LG looking so much stronger with their pushes this time around.
Yeah, looking confident. I think LG maybe suffered from a lack of confidence. Maybe there was a bit of a problem for them on contests in that first week, but now they're looking a little bit better. And I like the fact that, you know, they're getting out of dodge. Them and Optic not really having anything to do with each other, even though they're landing pretty close and kind of splitting the POIs that are extremely close in Big Mord and Lava City. So they're doing a good job on their pushes. They need to still maybe make a little bit more of the end games. They're getting into some decent positions, but you know, everybody wants to do that, right? Sometimes circumstances doesn't work out your way, and with the talent that's in this lobby at the moment, any kind of minute macro decision, delay on that decision, it affects where you place in these end games. But I will say that is the greatest finish I think we've ever seen as far as confidence is concerned. You know, all the love from Team Intus.
You know what? I had asked for some emoting out of EMEA. We're getting it out of NA this time around as we see the match 2 results here. 17 points going the way of Team Inters for that dub, but 12 kills on Glitch Energy. I don't even think I realized they had that many kills, Dan.
Yeah, I think when Glitch Energy took the train tracks above a lot of the teams, they were able to fire down and make life a living hell for a lot of them, and it seems like they were picking up the KP because of it. Elsewhere, big amount of kills for the likes of Dark Zero and 100 Thieves again, just like in games number 1, and CCE also picking up some kills alongside Drop-In. I mean, realistically, 6 kills are always like, oh, okay, 6 kills, but it's 2 team fights. It's very achievable if you pick your fights correctly and you can find those isolated fights. When you look at 12 kills, then you know something has gone awry. Like, there has been a team who has very much looked for fights and actively found fights, but also put themselves in a position where they can clean things up as well.
All right, let's see what the rest of these teams shook out. Got some KP onto Luminosity, and then down there at the bottom, Drug Free definitely having a rough start to the day. We talked about that at the beginning of the second match. Tripods getting taken out, so we'll have to see if they can bounce back. We've got one more match coming up for World's Edge, so that'll be their last opportunity as we see what those points did to the series results. Now, DZ at the top of this table with 29 points, but only 2 points above 100 Thieves, and the rest of the point spread is not that big. So this is going to be a very, very close day, but we're just gonna keep this thing going, okay? Match number 3 is right around the corner, so Onset and Gaskin, let's do this.
Let's do this. Let's get into it. Let's get into match number 3. And before we do, Dan, I think we need to take a second to actually pay respect to Glitch Energy, because these guys, this isn't a fluke. This isn't a performance that's come out of nowhere. This has been a long story for this trio. Day number 1, they put up 54 points. They were inside of top 5 battles more often than not to try and win the games. Coming into today, they had 21 points overall. They were sat in 6th position. So that's after only 1 game day. And to see them put in a performance like we just saw again with a huge amount of kills, with good placement, shows how good these guys are. And I think they're a team to watch this season.
Yeah, I think that they've demonstrated now with the amount of points they've been able to pick up, the amount of kills, and also the positioning that they found themselves in. Like, those are all the little pieces you have to put together to be a good squad. And we've already mentioned that after 2 good game days, you could already be in a position to call yourselves within a shot of getting to playoffs. Like, that's how important it is that you start so well, because then you're going to have all that confidence in the world to move forward in a necessary way. There's going to be the circle, so this time we're going to be slightly different. It is not going to be heading as far southwest. Instead, this is going to be far more easy for those teams who are dropping a fragment, for example. They're not going to have to move as far.
Yeah, one team already eliminated. There was AJC, I think, that have gone out already, and I just want to kind of, while we see these teams loot and there's going to be no more contesting really going down, just focus on Glitch Energy for a few seconds, because we've actually been lucky enough, you know, through fortune, whatever it might be, good luck, to kind of see these guys' progression through their competitive careers. When we first heard of 2 of these players, Reeds and Aiden Destroyer, They were called Arena Demons, Dan. We were casted in an arenas tournament where these guys were rank 1 in arenas. Then they decided, hey, we're going to give comp a try. They took their time to find their feet a little bit. Now they've got a new player in Vayne who's kind of taken the reins, so to speak, excuse the pun, and is leading them in some really good positions. And their performance is fantastic. It shows that, you know, wherever you are in Apex Legends, you put the time in, you grind, you commit, you can find yourself in a really good spot. And I've just been really impressed with these players and what they've managed to achieve so far.
I'm going to be honest, GE, their aim, and well, certainly Aiden the Destroyer, when I first saw him, I was like, is this kid legit for real, or is he a robot? Because his aim and what he was doing in those arena tournaments was like nothing I'd ever seen before, and really so impressive. And I'm sure that now that has naturally carried through with, of course, their learning of the Battle Royale and how important it is to maybe pick your fights correctly and those rotations as well, because it really worked out for them in that previous game. There's the beacon information, by the way, or should I say the ring console information now that's available, and Dark Zero will be very happy. It is going towards Fragment, which they had the entirety of, by the way. They had both East and West.
They do indeed. Very interesting zone, this one. Fragment is going to be the focus of attention, and I've got to be honest, I love a Fragment zone, Dan. You know me, and I've got a feeling it might be a little bit of a bridge finish, maybe, or maybe it's going to go a little bit out towards where that train station kind of finds itself. But at the moment, Dark Zero, I kind of like this. A lot of teams are going to be thinking, hey, let's get inside a Fragment, let's find a place to play. But if you can approach things late, from the outside with all these teams stacked up, we've seen if you're Dark Zero that you can take advantage of those teams having to exit some of those buildings and force themselves through those bottlenecks as everyone has to leave as the ring closes. So I kind of like the idea of leaving and working your way back in as everybody else takes the real estate inside.
I also wonder whether they just weren't comfortable with their loot and they wanted to be able to loot something else because they had a gray and a couple of blues. Like, it wasn't the best looting process for them, and they knew full well teams were going to be joining them shortly. Luminosity and Optic, this battle goes on again. This time it's happening in a different area. It's happening at Lava City.
I feel a little bit guilty. I was like, hey, look, they've kind of left themselves to each other. You know, nobody's really done anything crazy, and then all of a sudden it looks like LG want to take Optic down, and it's going to be Neasel who gets that first knock. They're chasing down the second as well. Get a little bit of a hip fire coming through with that flatline. Even better the second time round, but Optic have evened things up for a second here. Jaguar is just trying to stay alive. Yanya alongside him, but it's a 2v2 right now.
Black Hole's already gone down as well, and Luminosity maybe can take advantage of that as Optic Gaming do get eliminated. And it's a contest that we knew could have happened, but as you'd mentioned, they had been giving each other enough breathing room, but it seemed like neither were happy with the loot, or at least one team was not happy with the loot, and that's why we saw that engagement happen. But Optic Gaming, it is a sad end to their final game on World's Edge here, and they're going to have to look towards Stormpoint.
Is the onset curse back? That's the real question for
I don't think it ever left. Let's be honest. I think the onset curse has always been alive and well.
Pick the winner of playoffs, but, you know, won't talk about it too much. But anyway, let's focus our attention back on the map, because everybody, like I mentioned, is stacking up inside of Fragment at the moment. NRG, they're around the market. Tripods are there. CLG, everybody. Glitch Energy, they're at the north side of it as well, but they're holding down the height, kind of overlooking things at the moment, an epicenter. But DZ, this position, I'm very kind of interested about how this plays out for them, because it's, you would argue, maybe a little bit unorthodox. You might think, hey, we're landed in Fragment, we could get what we believe is going to be the priority position for where this game is going to end. But they've, like I mentioned, opted to rotate out kind of against the traffic a little bit and work their way back in, and I'm fascinated to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I think that it's always a big indication of how teams who drop in the POI when the circle is coming their way, of how they think it's going to play out. Like, they weren't comfortable. That's why they've decided to take a different position, and I think it's right for them to do so. I think that they can now play this one in a way. The area where they are residing is going to be having lots of cover, but Drop-In Gaming are going to be caught out. It's Drug Free, who haven't had a good start today, but maybe looking to make up for things here in match number 3.
Well, that knock's going to get finished as well, so Stunny across the road without looking both ways there, and everybody knows, even since you were a child, that is not something that is recommended to you by anyone in authoritarian positions. But Drug Free get that first knock. The question is, can they capitalize? Are they going to be able to move in now and clean up these final 2 players, or is it just going to be 1 KP they have to settle for?
I mean, it can get confusing in North America. I was there just the other week. I didn't know which way to look when I was crossing the road. It has to be said. They just drive on the wrong side. I don't really get it. But these guys, you know, they're from North America.
You have no excuse to not know that.
It's not like I lived in North America for the last 30 years of my life.
There, to be fair.
I do, yeah, but I still look the wrong way. But Drug Free did not, and they were able to make sure they pick up at least 1 KP. Is this going to be the game then that just relights the fire for Drug Free? Because exactly the opposite from their first match day. They have come pretty much dead last in these two games, whereas they won their first two games in match day number 1. If they can now use this to project themselves to find the form and go exactly the opposite of what they'd done and maybe find points on Storm Point, there is still a salvageable day for them here.
Fury holding down the central structure in Epicenter, and 100 Thieves are going to take to the skies and take the roof of the triple stack building here and should be able to play this position for quite some time as well. You can see they're obviously getting a lot of information that there are a lot of teams inside from the Valkyrie passive, but that won't be too much of a surprise to them with where this zone is going to be pulling. But this is maybe going to pull a little bit out towards where 100 Thieves are looking right now. Maybe down under those tracks. Vaxong has to be extremely careful as he gets singed again by a charge rifle and a couple of bullets from some other weaponry towards him. And it's going to be Kubsky and Co. down on that low ground. And look at Xset. They're having a little poke at this. Maybe they think this is a priority position.
Yeah, I think that, again, if you want an indication of where the circle is going to go, follow Xset, because their decisions have been incredible on the match days that we have seen them. I think this is going to be very important for certain Legend compositions as well as we get further into this zone and there's going to be less space to play. So those who have got the ability to smoke themselves off, the Bangalore is going to be very important. We only have 3 Bangalores, may I add, and Xset is currently one of them.
They really wanted to finish that fight as well. You saw the Zero went down. They tried to push up, but again, team stacked up inside a fragment. Any push is not free across that open ground for now. But 17 squads now remaining. Looks like NXS will have been taken down by a variety of different teams. And that's going to present the loot here for Xset. So they're going to be suited and booted to really, really do some damage towards this endgame. But they have to be careful because there is one team still rotating behind them from the countdown side of the map. And that is going to be CCE. Interested to see how they approach this. Are they going to wrap all the way through Skyhook? Or are they going to try and push through that choke that's currently being held by Xset? So they have to be aware here, Xset. And I think they've realized maybe holding this building down is a smarter decision, knowing that we've got 2 angles which we could be attacked in from teams rotating late.
Yeah, it's all well and good playing, you know, what you think might be a area where the circle's going to finish, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a safe spot to actually play. And you leave yourself so vulnerable to teams that are arriving late who, A, might want to try and take that position, but also a position that people will naturally be collapsing on. It's not always necessarily the best idea to play Central Circle, and I think that Dark Zero proved that by Skyward diving out of Fragment, even though they dropped there and they saw the circle was coming towards them. So it will be about them arriving late and maybe looking to A, hold off teams that are going to be arriving even later, and also make sure they're in a position to pick up KP when they do start to go in towards Fragment.
CLG holding down construction at the moment. Not really too much for them to do apart from survive, try and get a little bit of information. They do know a team is going to be below them, as those Watson fences are certainly going to give that information away. Luminosity trying to force their way into zone at the moment. They've got 11 seconds until it starts to close behind them, and they have a team in front of them as well. So this is an important fight for control, and it's going to be Dig on the other side of this. And it looks like LG, after that big win against Optic off the drop, are looking to close down this space and pick up their 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th KP of the game. God, my maths is bad, Dan. They've already got 3.
This is going to be...
That's not even maths. That's just not being able to count.
Did you use your toes to count them? But it doesn't... Well, Neasel's hitting toes at the moment. He's hitting everybody by, it would seem. Stops goes down. And now LG, just as they had done in the previous game's onset, they push up on their advantages. They've been so impressive today. And I think this is a new look LG. They perhaps were a little bit disappointed with themselves coming in from match day number 1.
Gotta be careful, though. There's a couple of teams on the horizon they have to be aware of, and Jaguares has got to be careful to use that heartbeat sensor to make sure nobody is closing the space behind them. Ring 2 is going to be closing. They can take a little bit of tick damage here, as Dropping Gaming, unfortunately, are eliminated as well to wrap back through the zone. And this is really smart, because there was a third party approaching. DZ, they heard all of that commotion going down as well, so they came to have a little look at this, and it looks like Luminosity kind of started a fight, got a little bit of a piece of it themselves, but then decided, hey, you guys can see this one out. We're just going to survive for now.
Survive is the aim of the game, quite often in Apex Legends, but you've also got to make sure you have a game plan of where you're going to go. You don't just want to be aimlessly wandering, and that's why IGL's so key and such a big factor. But now the teams are going to learn, who didn't have the ring console information, are going to learn where the circle is going to be moving. It is just going to even further go into Fragment West. So those who are on Fragment East are going to have to move slightly. But the fights that were happening, and the reason why I said the fights were going to be very important, is the south, the west, and the north side were all seeing engagements going down. And if you win those, you then kind of dominate that side of the map. It doesn't really matter on the east at the moment because everyone has moved on in to Fragment. But the other areas of the map, there is still room to play for.
Interesting things developing around this train tunnel as well. You can see CCE, they're on the other side of the fight from Dark Zero. Dark Zero know that they're here. However, wrapping behind them is going to be Drug Free. And then behind them, looking to collapse, is Exet. So Exet kind of still holding that choke that we saw on the map quite some time ago. And CCE just trying to work out what their next move is going to be. But one thing that they're going to have to do is fight. They don't have the Valkyrie. They don't have the ability to take over the skies and drop back into Fragment. But they do have an extremely aggressive fighting comp. That's what Drug Free chose to do, though. You can see they were the team that were pinched. Now they can find their way and thread the needle into the construction building. There is a team inside at the moment, but not on every single floor, so they can survive.
Yeah, this is like a hotel, motel, Holiday Inn at this point. Lots of room to play. And look down on the southern side of your map. Dark Zero still in the position that they Valkyried out to, and they will be taking engagement with CCE shortly as CCE push out of those train tracks.
Tripod's smiling right now, by the way. It is going to be a bridge end, I think, or maybe pull away towards the market, but we have seen that bridge finish over the lava quite some times in Apex Legends Global Series history. And Tripods, who were looking like they were on the wrong side of it, all of a sudden with that zone pull, are very much on the right side of it right now. LG as well, look at what they did from their rotation. They've put themselves in a great position as well. Now the difficulty comes for teams like Dark Zero, like Exet, who might have thought we're making a big brain play here, and we think it's going to be pulling out towards the west side of World's Edge. Well, CCE, they're fighting Dark Zero right now. They're trying to put the pressure on. The Zero-roll's going to go down. The Bangalore-roll's going to go down as well. They're throwing all of their utility at this, but no damage being done.
No damage. I mean, CCE went so low. Shiny was so low in terms of his health. But unfortunately, Dark Zero were not able to capitalize. And unfortunately for Dark Zero as well, there's another team that's arriving behind them. So they need to be careful here. They cannot afford to get involved in this engagement any longer. Otherwise, they're going to be third party. There you can see it. Designful, Zac, and Chaotic are in the area and could be a pain in the backside for Dark Zero. But both Dark Veils come down simultaneously. It was almost like artwork.
Oh my goodness, and Dark Zero in trouble now because the Zero goes down from BBB. They're going to get the information of where Dark Zero are going. They're looking to chase him down. They got good damage through that wall, but also a little bit smart here. They slowed things down, even though the knocks have come in. Dark Zero eliminated. Chaotic managed to pick up one of those kills, but it was the teams inside of Fragment. The big indicator of those callous walls going down gave them the information that teams were rotating in. They took advantage. Now BBB control this side of zone. CCE are still there, though. They have to be aware, but they're the other side of the tracks, and BBB will be safe for now.
Will Dark Zero live to regret the play where they used the Skyward Dive to escape Fragment, only to see the circle, of course, continue to pull? Remember, they were the team who dropped Fragment. They had the entirety to themselves, and now it looks like we might be heading to a bridge finish, or as you say, could even pull towards market. One of the teams, by the way, if it is a bridge finish, that are in prime position, NRG. We've questioned NRG. We've said there's been a few occasions where maybe they could have done a little bit better, and they could make up for it here in this game.
Fight going down here between CCE and BBB. That is very, very difficult to say. And we're going to have to see how this one does pan out. We've got an opportunity to jump into a listening now with BBB, so let's take it. Let's jump into the comms now.
Keep him in that corner. I have Q in 3 seconds.
I'm about to run.
We're gonna fight right now.
60. I just dropped 60.
I'm walking forward. We're wiping this. Can you all maybe?
I have one.
They're climbing up. Crack Zero 130.
30 on a horizon.
Batting. Oh no.
Zero's dead.
Nice.
I have to bat.
One's jumping on you. One's jumping on you. Just one on you guys.
Bro.
No, I hit him for 180.
I did hell of it.
And that is why it's difficult to push that comp. CCE have the horizon gravitational lift. They go up into the skies. They got to fight through the smokes as well, BBB. And then you saw the ultimate going in. Sears giving all the information. A tough push on that comp. And CCE now finally, after disposing of Dark Zero and BBB, they control this southern side. But with the zone pulling how it is all of a sudden, they've got some tough moves to make still.
I still think BBB could have won that. I think he hit him for 180 at the end there. It was so fortunate that Shiny was still at full health. Otherwise, that could have been a very different fight after the bat was pulled off. But now CCE, they don't need to think about that fight. They start to look towards how they get into this next zone because round 4 is already closing. As you say, though, they own the south side, but they just have to be aware of construction. 2 teams at the moment are in construction, and they are going to try and shoot out. But construction is not safe, so they have to move as well.
CLG making their play, moving towards market. NRG, a fascinating story. Like you say, 2 zones, you feel like NRG should have come out of it with more. Well, now they're bang in the center of this zone in the broken building. Up on the tracks, though, is going to be CLG. They take some damage on their way down. But another fascinating story is the rotation that Exit have to make. And they're involved in all of this carnage that's going down. Drug Free will fall. SCS will fall as well as the teams are forced into all sorts of carnage right now. You see that Bangalore rolls falling from the sky. You see Nano taken down to about 10 HP, but they will be able to reset for now. But just underneath CLG, Exet come out on top of all of that carnage. They have to deal with CLG, and the Skynade is going to rip them apart.
And the circle has pulled away from the bridge back towards the market area and the building NRG are in. CLG still having the fight. Nades go down for them now. All the ticks happening. The Noxgas doing the job. And now CLG just have to press this advantage.
Have to press the advantage. Should be able to finish this one off as well. Exet eliminated. And that is what Caustic can do. But there's a third party still to deal with. There's one. The Rampage is going wild. Shiny trying to get the shield swap, but he can't. And CLG come out on top. Caustic is back. And Mamba is doing some wild stuff.
Incredible, and the Rampage also shows what it's made of as well. Not a gun to be slept on, definitely a weapon you should be picking up in your matchmaking games. Furia still alive then, and they have a building to work with, but they've got 20 seconds before they have to start moving. They don't have to move far, but look at the amount of open space in this next circle. There are teams who are safe though, as Furia now being pushed.
Being pushed. One player just popped through the window and said, what's going on in here then? I'm going to get a knock. I'm going to disturb your game. And all of a sudden, Fury have got to think about a res instead of maybe pushing out this building and continuing their rotation towards zone. Good shots coming in from Zeratricky, trying to hold the team off of the high ground, but they're just swarmed at the moment. They're just surrounding this. Team Inters, the winners of our previous game, who are doing so much damage.
Team Inters, who are demanding respect after their previous game, will take out Furia, and now they dominate the northwest side of this zone. 100 Thieves do have eyes on them, though, so they have to be careful with their rotation in, but it's all about NRG for me. GE also have a good position right now. Tripods are having to make their way across the bridge, and they run into CLG.
Yeah, CLG, who are going to be full of all sorts of confidence as well. Nick Marks is going to go down, and Tripods find themselves at just 2. The Catalyst wall is down, which is going to deny NRG from being able to influence this fight too much, but being down to 2 is not a position you want to be in. Sweet's having a little bit of an overextend here, looking if he can kind of thread the needle between the Catalyst walls to pick up a couple of KP. Decides instead. They've got Nick Marks back up, though. I think they managed to just about get Nick back up.
I think his corpse might have flown up into the air, but Gent might be the last remaining player. And you can also see the res coming down. CLG making sure they get their third back into the equation. It's all going down right now, but all the meanwhile, NRG just holding tight and dominating this building.
Sweet trying to do what he can as well to influence this fight, to disrupt this fight. He wants to make sure these teams die so they can clear this side of the zone. But no, Sweet goes down. Did he get too hungry in that situation?
Just needs the rest of the squad to help him out, and they could get him back up, should get him back up. Just need cover from Nathan, and cover there shall be. The Havoc will sing from a distance, and NRG, they can just breathe a sigh of relief here. It is not going to be the all and end all. Instead, they can just get back up, and they can start to fight again.
The NRG survive. And now Gilderson's moving in with that Prowler. Doing a good amount of damage himself, trying to clear these teams off the respawn beacon. Has to take a bit of a second to pop a Barry when he can, but sometimes you just got to back the beef. You got to back your teammates going in. Don't worry about the shields. Get the kills first. Team Inter's eliminated. It will not be back-to-back for them.
So down to 4, but CLG are down to just 1 player. So it's going to be NRG, GE, and 100 Thieves as your big threats to win this game. We were talking about Glitch Energy. We were talking about how they have come through the ranks here from arena players now to being a real threat in Battle Royale.
NRG getting shredded on the cross right now, trying to take back their original position. But like you mentioned, Glitch Energy have moved in. Aim the Destroyer from arenas to Battle Royale to maybe a playoff qualifier and a chance to play at LAN. 100 Thieves taking the high ground as well. And it looks like we might be in a shootout position now. We're down to just 2 squads remaining. It's 100 Thieves versus GE. And what 2 different stories these teams are having this season.
Vaxelon just has to be careful. He's isolated. Love this. You've got to get back to your team. Dark Veil goes down just to separate things. And of course, here comes the Seal Ultimate at the same time. Now you've got all the info. You can shoot through the wall.
Oh, this is brilliant from 100 Thieves. This is why you hold on to your ultis. This is why you do exactly what they've done. It's shooting fish in a barrel. 100 Thieves, they've been quiet for a while now, but all of a sudden, they're about to reintroduce themselves. 100 Thieves will be your winner here on World's Edge.
And that is textbook Apex Legends in this meta. You get the Dark Veil down, you get the Seer ult down, and you are getting a free win. There was no response there from the opposition. GE had already used everything that they would have used, and it means that 100 Thieves can be on to a victory here, Glitter. And I mean, that's what we've been waiting. We've been waiting for that wombo combo to drop at the end of the game, and it is like that. It's a chef's kiss. It's perfect when it happens.
I mean, another very impressive performance. Yes, 100 Thieves, they played that perfectly because as soon as NRG and GE were kind of on top of each other, they're like, we're just going to let that one rock, and then we'll clean up whatever the remains of the squads are. They very, very smart, but GE, consistency yet again in both the placements and their aggression. They're looking very, very good today. And then a little bit of a comeback that we knew NRG was capable of at least getting themselves up there in a top spot in this game to close out World's Edge, which is important because we talked about it. Some of the teams that had started off today doing well, had done well last weekend on Stormpoint, which is what we're heading into next. So some teams really needed to get those points on the board. I mean, I'm excited that this is what we're seeing out of some of these teams. Glitch Energy, I think, might be a little bit of a spanner in the works for some of these squads, Mark.
Yeah, they're a sleeper team for sure. It's, as I say, week 1, I was kind of looking at it. I was like, oh, did they just have one of those weeks? It's like a really good week where they had one win with a lot of KP. And I was looking across, I was like, no, they actually had really good placements, consistent kills as well. And then today they've come in and they've done exactly the same thing again. End zones, they've been there. Closing out games, not quite yet. But if you're getting into top 3s and top 2s and you're picking up KP, you keep doing that for the whole season, we'll see you at LAN. It's as simple as that. They really have been impressive. And unfortunate not to close that one out. It was just 100 Thieves holding on to their utility that made it such a simple end game for them. And that's what we always talk about, utility management. If you have ultimates, you're going to have success against a team who doesn't. It's as simple as that.
And that's probably something that I think 100 Thieves were looking for too, because they've come close quite a few times, not able to close it out, and now they get that. And that's going to be huge for them, at least mentally, heading into Stormpoint now, Gaskin.
Yeah, I think mentally going into Stormpoint, there's a lot of teams who are probably going cross-eyed at the thought of it because it is going to be trauma from match day 1 where they really struggled. I mean, I spoke about the big difference for Drug Free where they had 47 points on World's Edge and then 1 point on Stormpoint. It has been that much of a contrast for some of these squads, and it's because the meta hasn't quite developed to that people have like locked it down yet. People are still trying things, and that can throw a spanner in the works on your rotations when suddenly you run across a team that are running something bit different, or maybe they're going a little bit wayward from where they did in scrims, because as Onset's alluded to, scrims do not tell us everything. People do not play the same in scrims. People will change it when they're in the ALGS. Scrims are for practice. I don't know how many times I have to reiterate that. Like, don't expect scrims to play out exactly the same as ALGS, and don't get frustrated when they don't either. Just make sure you come with the same kind of energy that you need when you get into ALGS matches so that you are focused and you are prepared.
All right, well, let's take a look back at those match 3 highlights because a lot happened early, specifically between LG and OG. Thank you to the curse of Onset here.
You're welcome. That's all I will say. Hey, look, I wanted to see this go down, all right? Oh, that's what it really was. I really just tried to foreshadow it so that we would have a nice little early fight between LG and Optic. Who wouldn't want to see that? Unless you're an Optic fan and you don't come out on top. But 100 Thieves, very interesting rotation from them. We saw them hit the sky with dive and land on the top of this triple stack building, and then they managed to clear out all of the north side. Exet, they made a pretty good attempt at rotating in as well, but then they were held out by the Caustic from CLG and a big solo play at the end to make sure that CLG survived for a little bit longer than maybe we thought they were. But this fight on the edge, Dan was talking about like comps you don't expect to run into. I do not think that BBB expected to see a team take to the skies and do that damage, because you can see it was the Horizon lift that caused so many problems for them. They walled it off, they played it pretty much perfectly, and then all of a sudden the wall becomes almost irrelevant because you can just lift over it. So it's very interesting to see how the comps are kind of countering each other at the moment. And again, if you don't expect something, it catches you off guard. That few seconds it catches you off guard turns into the first knock on a team winning that fight.
And CCE was actually causing a lot of problems for these teams, Gaskin. I mean, they even tried to do this third-party push here, and I was shocked that CLG was able to keep this one in favor of themselves.
I mean, Mamba doing Mamba things. The Rampage went nuts as well. We switched POVs in the middle of it, and I thought that Mamba had gone down, but no, we switched to the other team and just saw Mamba shred. And I was very impressed with some of the fights that did happen. Now, NRG, are they going to be a little bit frustrated with how that game went down? They were in one of the prime positions for quite some time, but then because tripods were able to stay alive, maybe just those couple of shots were enough to take NRG's kind of equipment away a little bit. They had to use a few resources, and then because Sweet never got the opportunity to fully heal back up, that could have been one of the reasons why they got punished.
Either way, Glitch Energy looking like a team that is definitely not to be trifled with here, but you already mentioned it on set. 100 Thieves just playing this final circle perfectly, saving the utility for when they needed. They had the positioning. They were able to watch everybody else have those fights in front of them and close that thing out very, very easily. And they looked good doing it. But that's a wrap on all of our World's Edge games, which means we are also at the halfway point of the show. And this is the point where we get to bring in one of our lovely pros to come and hang out with us, talk about all the games that we've seen so far and do a little bit of analysis. Well, this time we have Snipe Down coming to hang out. I'm very excited to have you on, Eric. Obviously, if you guys don't know, Snipe Down from FaZe, and currently the individual kill leader at 24 kills right now. So how are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling great. It's nice to have a day off. You know, we played both days last week, so I get to relax a little bit, have a nice Saturday, get to watch some other teams and kind of analyze going into our games tomorrow.
Okay, well, talking about analysis, let's do that right now. Okay, we're going to pull up the final circle from the game that we just watched, and I want you to walk everybody through what you saw from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So in this final circle, we just saw Glitch actually take out NRG at the crates who was fighting CLG, and now we're kind of just in a straight up 1v1. 100 Thieves is doing a really good job right here of kind of spreading out. You have Vaxlon who's pushed up with his two teammates, Scurry and Anu, watching over them. So he backs up. He knows this is when they decide to wall. They cut off the entire other team. The perfect Seer ult on the side. If you can't break that Seer ult right away, they seem to have full coverage. You know, they get the wall hacks right through the wall. Glitch is just kind of scrambling at this point. And you know, I gotta give credit to Glitch. They played this game great. They got as much KP as they possibly could in a huge second place. So we have 100 Thieves and Glitch who really secured themselves in the top of this pool so far, which is great for both of them.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of really cool stuff coming out of NA. We're going to be hanging out and chatting with you for a little bit now. So I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to be telling us which teams you think are doing well and which teams you think could work to improve. And while we talk about that, we'll also be able to look at the match results, if I am not mistaken.
Great. Yeah, so I mean, I think this week is huge for a lot of these teams. You know, these are their second time playing. We have Group A that's already played twice. 100 Thieves really needed to bounce back. I think they had 10 points going in from last week, which is obviously not great for them. They're a placement-heavy team, and them being at the top of this right now is huge for that squad. You have another team like Furia who had a big win to start off today when they had a bad week as well last week. So we have a lot of teams who were doing kind of average last week, doing great this week, which is big for the standings, you know. And then you have certain teams like Dark Zero, Xset, which are carrying over the momentum from the previous week. Those two teams are phenomenal. Glitch also did really well. And then you have teams like, I think the biggest talking point is going to be the LG and Optic contest that we're constantly seeing. You know, both those teams, I don't know if it's like an ego battle or what it is at this point, but when those teams are going to be contesting nonstop, it's going to be hard for either of those teams to truthfully qualify. They're both great, talented squads. It's going to be hard to wipe this straight up. And I think those teams are going to have to come to some sort of understanding to maybe just let each other live so they both have a chance at qualifying for LAN. Because right now, it seems like one gets the other every other game, and they're both going to be struggling.
Yeah, and we can see it, the series results here, what those points with the win did for 100 Thieves in the standings. They're now in first with 44, pretty far above some of the rest of the squads. Glitch Energy, though, also putting themselves in a really solid spot. On set, do you have any questions that you want to ask Snipe Down while we're here?
Of course I do. Eric, hello, my friend. It's great to have you on the show, as always. Please don't get too good on that analysis, by the way, because I really need this job. But let's talk a little bit about the new team, right? Let's talk about the vibes. Let's talk about your performance and being back at the top of the leaderboard, because you know, I've followed your career for a long time now, pretty much since day one. And every single time that I've seen someone write you off, it's almost like you love hearing that. It's like your favorite thing to hear, because you come back with like such fire, such passion, and you prove people wrong time and time again. Now, what's it been like on the new roster? Like having that fire lit back under you and having a new IGL and Phony Head who's really leading you into some great spots?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I took the year off to go back to Halo, and I came back to a meta that I'd never played in before. The whole Seer meta was just a very different time for me. You know, I'm used to hitting these flank routes and was put in this situation where I didn't understand the game as much, and a lot of people just got so much better. A lot of talented people in the ALGS right now, so it just took a little bit for me to adapt. And you know, my last squad, you know, we didn't really have like a true IGL at the time. We were all kind of learning and growing, and I think it was tough for me to come back into that because I was still behind. And Phony has just been, you know, he's flown under the radar, I think, for a very long time. That kid is incredibly talented, and he's got you know, he's very professional for how young he really is. And then we add Frex to the roster, and I think right now it's just like we have one of the most professional environments. We have a great coach to keep our heads in check, and we really just dive down into what we need to improve on every time. If there's an issue, we break it down. No one's like at each other's throats. It's very productive conversations, and I think that's just the best environment for all of us, and it's really why we put this team together in the first place. We took all of that into consideration when the team was formed.
And I mean, Onset talks about, you know, it gives you the fire and it turns you into a different beast. How difficult was it for you personally to miss out on LAN? Because LAN is what you live and breathe, right? We've seen you grow throughout the years in a LAN environment. You had to sit in the wings, you had to watch on. What was that like for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I'm truthfully glad I went to the London LAN just to kind of sit in the stands and be like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be a spectator. I want to be on that stage, kind of feeling the fire, honestly feeling like almost jealousy, just watching these players compete at the highest level and thinking that's where I want to be. Like, I do not accept what I put forward into the last split, my individual performance, the team performance, everything. And it just kind of, it lit a fire under me. And I'm just so thankful that, you know, I have two teammates that trusted me to really show up, put in the work, you know, because I mean, a lot of people had written me off, like you said. I mean, the community, a lot of people had written me off in the community. A lot of the pro players, I heard things that they were saying, and it was just like, you know what, like, I don't give a, you know, whatever about what other people are saying. It's what I know I can do and what I can provide to this roster. And I'm just thankful that they trusted me. I'm providing that, and I'm working my ass off every single day out here. You know, I practice as hard as I can every day to learn something new every day.
It's good to have you back.
Yeah, it really is. And I love that you said that going to the London LAN really lit that fire under you, Eric, because you guys have been crushing it this split so far. So obviously, thank you so much for jumping on and chatting with us here today. Best of luck tomorrow in your matches.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right, always really nice to get to catch up with Eric. But we still have some matches that we have to start talking about. Obviously, before we do that, though, we need to talk about the Challenger circuit, okay? If you're wondering how you could potentially be playing in the ALGS, well, you have to register for the Challenger circuit. The registration will end on March 22nd, so make sure you are getting yourself signed up at battlefy.com/ALGS. Make sure you and your team are registered, and then potentially you could be playing your way into this very exact Pro League. The tournament will start on March 25th. That's coming up right around the corner. Like we said before, World's Edge is done. Now we're moving on to Storm Point, okay? So we're gonna obviously remind everybody of that. You can see all of the 3 winners from World's Edge. Now Storm Point's gonna be mixing things up here. It should be very interesting to see what our teams can do with this new map, and I'm excited to get into that action, which means for the next game, it is time for me to send it back on over to Onset and Gaskin. Let's do this.
Let's do this. But before we get into this game, Dan, can I just say, for anyone who's followed Snipedown's career, or maybe doesn't know Snipedown's career as well as Dan and I do, this is the scariest form of Snipedown. Like, we've seen it throughout the years. Like, Snipedown, you know, he gets written off all of a sudden, and then you just see it's a look in his eyes, and there's a way that he speaks that means, I am going to destroy you next time I have the opportunity to. And that is exactly what I heard from him there. I love the fact that he's happy with the environment on FaZe. I love the fact that he's back doing what he does best, which is just silently killing everything in a lobby. That's a scary looking Snipedown, if you ask me.
It's a man who knows what he wants. I mean, he could have very easily turned up to the London LAN, watched it and gone, maybe I see a different career now. Maybe this isn't where I want to be. Maybe I want to be on the analyst desk, right? Because I do think that he would be a fantastic addition to any sort of talent show. And I do think that he is a player that knows that he hasn't lost it yet, right? Like, esports, there's a lot of talk about players, you know, when you get too old, do you still have it? I think that Eric is a fantastic demonstration that you can still have it no matter how many. He's still only 31?
Dan, I still see him as the like 16, 17-year-old kid on a main stage. I will never see Eric outside of anything but that. But sometimes I have to remember that he's actually like an adult human now. And I mean, I don't know. It's a crazy thing. But FaZe obviously doing amazing watching on today, Dan. But now we have to change the story. We have to change the script. And we have to change the map. We're heading to Storm Point. Game number 4 is live.
Again, though, could see some contests, and it could be LG involved in it, down towards Mirage Trois, and Fish Farms. Rise are in the area, but no, it looks like they're going to be okay. Rise are going to instead take Launchpad, but take a little bit of the area just north of Mirage Trois. So that is good news for LG. They don't have to take a contest on both maps. Otherwise, it could have been very detrimental for them. We heard what Snipedown was saying. That fight with Optic is never going to be a fun one. Speaking of Optic, they're going to be going down to Beast, so they also should have a more comfortable game here, or set of games on Storm Point.
It's a good zone for Exet. It could be a cascade. It could be just south of Checkpoint like we saw earlier in the Mia. We'll have to see when we get a little bit of beacon information where we are going to be going, ladies and gents. But for now, it's time for us to see all of these teams just do a little bit of looting as we won't have any contesting and how they try and approach things. Look, I'm interested to see Optics drop as well. Near to Dark Zero. Obviously not contesting them. The mill was somewhere that Optic did like to drop. However, you can see the down beast is now open. That's the former FaZe position they like to take in the last split. But for now, it looks like everyone is comfortable, if I'm not mistaken, Dan.
Yeah, and you said about Checkpoint, it's pretty much bang on where NRG are right now, is where the circle's heading. Could go down towards the trenches as well, just south of North. That's where you're going to see a lot of these teams start to set up, because there are so many different places you can play in those trench areas. So the likes of where Dig are, you can see the Optic can just move on up and take a trench area as well, and the NRG, if they would like to, can move a little bit further north. So this one's going to start pulling up towards Northbound, and there's going to be a lot of teams that will be able to find a nice early rotation.
Good news for BBB fans as well. TSM not in the lobby means the wall is theirs. However, if you're a fan of Spiders, this is not the POV that you want to be watching right now, because they get destroyed, eliminated by Vaxelon the Exterminator. He's going to pick up a little bit of loot as 100 Thieves, the winners of our last game. And the fascinating thing about the Apex Legends Global Series now, Dan, is that we're a couple of years into things. You know, we've got a lot of history now with these teams, with their achievements. I mean, this was a team who came out of nowhere, that won the first championships before during the pandemic, where they picked up a huge amount of money, a huge amount of prestige. It was a crazy match point finish, and from there signed for 100 Thieves. But it's been a little bit of a stagnate time, I would say, for them over the last season or so. They made LAN just about, but they didn't qualify for that finals lobby. But now, sometimes we always talk about what a win can do for a team, right? One win, all of a sudden your season turns around, your form turns around, your momentum turns around, your trust is reinstated in your teammates, and we'll have to see if that happens for 100 Thieves.
I think that's Battle Royale, though, isn't it? It's the high highs and the low lows. Very different to a lot of other arena esports, for example, whereas if you finish first at a tournament, you're probably going to be hovering around first, second, third. Maybe you'll drop down to top 6 for the rest of your career, most likely. However, in Battle Royale, you can finish first one tournament and you can finish 20th the next tournament, and then 15th and then 3rd, and you are all over the place. To try and keep on top of your game and keep motivated through that is very difficult, and that's why we always have to just note these teams that do push through these hard times and do re-find that success that maybe they have lost in some of these darker times. And I will say as well, maybe we need warnings before these broadcasts for those who have arachnophobia as we get into these spider battles. I have seen mods for some games that just turn spiders into blurry visuals, and maybe we need that just to make sure that people don't get too scared. Mark, are you scared of spiders?
No.
Okay, that's all right.
Honestly, I'm not. Spiders don't bother me at all.
See, and you'd make a fantastic boyfriend. You're the one who will come in and make sure you just usher them outside nicely, wouldn't you? You're very polite about it.
Yeah, don't just bit of paper, glass, pop them outside the window, no problem. They're not going to hurt you. Wasps, however, no time for you. Anyway, let's move on to 100 Thieves and let's look at their rotation, because they're taking off from around command center, and they're going to be able to hit a really, really long rotation here on the Valkyrie ultimate, going from one of the highest points here on Storm Point to one of the lowest points down in the trenches. So 100 Thieves, they're not messing about here, Dan. They're trying to get a spot to play early. However, they're finding a little bit of traffic, and the trench isn't the best place to have to land here.
This is one of my favorite finishes, by the way, with the trench finishes, because there's so many different narrow angles that you have to take, and you can actually have isolated fights in the end game just because you block out so much of the visuals from those teams who might be holding angles above you. And I love isolated fights. I think that's why Apex Legends is so good. These 3v3 engagements and the permutations that go around that. Like, are you going to be able to bait and switch? Are you going to be able to utilize those abilities or any grenades you may have to try and win those engagements as well? All of that can be taken away by a third party, but I like the trenches because you can isolate.
Well, 100 Thieves have got a place to call home for quite some time now. DZ, they're going to be just to their side as well, or above them, as you can see on the map at the moment, inside the Donut Building. It's officially the Donut Building, by the way. I won't hear it called anything else. Oxygen Esports, they're also holding down a little position in the trenches. They're going to be watching for rotates down from Checkpoint as well with that zip line that's in front of them. Not a lot of teams left in Checkpoint, though. CLG are going to be there. They're trying to walk down the hill at the moment, and they might actually be having a little bit of an engagement as 100 Thieves and NRG introduce themselves with a very firm handshake, I'll call it.
A firm handshake indeed. As they just pass.
Handshake where you don't break eye contact. You know the ones?
There's one of the, yeah, where there's a lot of meaning behind the handshake, that's for sure. Well, speaking of breaking eye contact, BBB on one side, and they are very much going to be staring down the opposition. Zach Mazer and the rest really need to decide on how they want to push this one, and it does seem like the damage has been done, and it might be enough to send it on this team.
Designful taking a really good angle here. He's going to get a huge amount of damage. Gets one knock alongside his teammates. There's going to be some more damage, but the 30-30 not quite connecting in the way they would have wanted to. But SCS do go down, but there's a third party in the vicinity, and it's going to be Dark Zero, I believe, who are overlooking some of these fights going down. It's actually Rise, excuse me, and BBB, who look like they found an isolated fight, a very comfortable place to play, now have to reset. Chaotic's got a full armor swap, and it's Redzy who's going to take some damage on the cross as well, and Redzy goes down.
BBB, CCE, SCS, your alphabet has to be on point as Rise now will be down to 2. Detox very low, but should be able to get a bat off, you'd imagine. And surely Rise don't throw this opportunity away of a third party. You'd imagine it should be comfortable as now the Dark Veil comes out just to ensure they have that support and they have a wall to play with.
Designful has been completely finished as well. KO takes a big amount of damage from that high ground, though. Trying to play on this head glitch just the other side of the cannon. Zach Maze is going to try and push in, but just gets picked apart as BBB kind of fall apart a little bit here. Take yourself back a few seconds. They had complete control of the situation. The third party comes in. Zach tries to take it off angle, but just gets picked off himself. And now Chaotic left on his own, but doing some good damage from distance with this Nemesis.
Well, when you've got a Nemesis, it almost gives you an extra gun, it would seem. It's so strong, but as he pushes up, he takes far too much damage. Sure, he's cracked one of the players, but unfortunately, in a 1 versus 2, it's never going to be fun. Does get the finish onto one player, but I don't think it's going to be enough to survive. Will not. So BBB eliminated. Rise are just going to have to make sure Redzy gets back up, but oh, there's more to the party.
Here come Glitch Energy, and I tell you what, there's another team just behind them as well. This is a real hotbed of activity at the moment, but Rise getting taken down extremely quickly means that Glitch will be able to completely reset here and should be able to get those bats off, but no, the CQ comes in. That's going to cancel the battery, and Glitch Energy decides, you know what? Enough is enough for now. We're out of here. We get the wall down. Fury are trying to chase them down. Reeds needs to get a battery off if they want to have a chance of turning around and fighting this.
Yeah, Fury turned up with the red cups and the ping pong balls and said, is it still happening? Is the party still going on? And GE said, no, we're out. We don't want any of this. No pong for today. And Fury maybe a bit frustrated they weren't quick enough to the punch, but at least they were able to maybe collect all of the loot and they get all of the goodies without having to fight for it.
I have fond memories of beer pong, by the way. I would just say, you know, we have very fond memories of that because I won a double or nothing game and it was a wonderful moment for me. Probably one of the highlights of my life. But Furia, they don't have a highlight to talk about right now as they didn't manage to get on top of that fight and didn't manage to get as close to Glitch Energy as they could to third party that and get the first knock and really turn things in their favor. Luminosity, they're going to be down on the southern side of the zone at the moment. 1 minute and 10 seconds to go. The zone will close. No real danger of them being dangered by the zone, so to speak. Probably could have used a better adjective there, Dan, but, you know, we're deep into the broadcast now. You got to let me off sometimes.
Yeah, as it gets to the early hours of the United Kingdom, you can always expect Onset's brain to just change a little bit, but then he'll pick it up for the next game, and that's what we can always love about Onset.
That's what we're all about.
It's Apex at night as things change, but Luminosity, I mean, as you say, they are well equipped now. I've been very impressed with what they've done today, and remember, they were the Storm Point specialists, right? When it came to Split 1, these guys dominated when it came to Storm Point. They had some of the most victories, they had some of the most points across any region, and if they can find that same form in this meta, then they are going to be a real threat.
Glitch Energy, once again, they were the team that were being chased down. They managed to pick up the third party on BBB. They were being chased by Furia, but they've managed to completely reset now, and Furia are completely out of the situation that they found themselves kind of worrying for a few moments. But LG down on the south side of the zone, you can see that GE just above them, CCE on the outside, and Furia also completely wrapping to hit a little scan and find out where everybody is going to be and what place they can play afterwards. And I wonder if they're going to try and hit a second one here. You see they're rotating to the north, maybe with a skyward dive. You can see the Digger going to be in that armory. And this choke might become Furia's for now. And maybe we're going to see GE versus Furia Part 2.
Honestly, with the changes to the survey beacon, I thought it would really benefit teams like Furia, who do actively look to try and take advantage of teams on the edge. And they did show that in World's Edge, right? There were times where they really capitalized on some teams maybe not expecting to be pushed. And they have found themselves a little bit of a home, as have Tripods for now, but they are very much caught between several teams.
Yeah, this is looking like a bit of a tough spot for them. You see, they took a lot of damage on the way down. They managed to just about get inside, but they've expended so many resources to survive here. If a team tries to push them, they've got no defensive capability apart from the piercing spikes that could go down from the Catalyst. But Optic, I think they realized that. They saw things that went down. They saw the ultimates being used. They wanted to have a little sniff at this one, but Optic, I think, have got to play the long game a bit here. Have had a very, very slow day so far, and I think they realized that lasting longer in this game is more beneficial than for them to try and force a fight now.
It is important, though, to keep an eye on what abilities are used. I think it was Nasky during the EMEA broadcast when we went into a listening just shouting, they're out of juice, they're out of juice. And when they are, you can take advantage of it because we know how strong abilities can be, especially some of these ultimates. And it makes it so difficult when you are being pushed. You don't have anything to counter that at the same time. But it does look like Tripods might get away with it as this circle continues to pull northwest. We knew it was going to be going up towards North Pad. The team saw it as well. This is one of the more predictable zones that we have on Storm Point, as now Glitch Energy, they'll make their way in.
Really tough to Valkyrie ult in this position as well, because you're not going to get those scans on the teams in the trenches until you fly above them, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, we could play here, we could play here. Wait, there's nowhere for us to play, and all of a sudden we're getting ripped out of the skies, and Reeds falls down to his knees. The Catalyst wall will go down. Can they get the res? No! Aiden the Destroyer will go down as well, and Glitch Energy, who have been so impressive so far, fall to the combination of 100 Thieves and NRG. NRG overextending to make sure that they keep as much space as they can, but have Glitch survived? Is one player still alive? Has anyone managed to finish those downs, or will GE manage to reset?
That was the cutest Dark Veil I've ever seen, by the way. The smallest Catalyst wall you will ever see in a game, just
Catalyst
narrowly taking off. It was like a little pickup fence that is going to be knocked down very easily. There we go, it goes down now. But one member still alive, you mentioned it. GE are still going to be up, and Aiden also gets picked up. NRG now shredding down in the trenches, but GE, it has to be said, they've just about survived, but for how long?
NRG now having to play a little bit defensively here. You saw Sweet trying to do what he does best. Take a little bit of space, do some damage, force teams away. Nathan's going to get the first knock here. And also you can see in the kill feed that DZ are having a little go at Glitch Energy. Big information being picked up here by Nathan. Tries to swing out, has to be careful as his shields are going to get smashed away. Exet also in the vicinity. Drug-free eliminated in the meantime as well. But NRG doing a great job here, not only to reset, but also to force these teams away. Glitch Energy have been eliminated, though. Their amazing run so far today will not continue here in game number 4.
Now remember, NRG had the pick of it all, really, when it comes to where they wanted to play here in the trenches, because they dropped at checkpoint. They could have rotated to pretty much anywhere, and they find themselves in a comfortable position for now. CCE are going to potentially get an engagement here. These buildings are always difficult to navigate because of all the entry points, but the Horizon Black Hole will come down. It's just going to keep CCE away for now.
Couple of teams trying to coexist at the moment. You can see that Flinzar's trying to move in. Dropping Game and have been eliminated in the meantime. And I mentioned Flinzar, well, you don't have to worry about him anymore because CCE are holding their ground at the moment. The smokes are going to go down as well. And Shiny's got a digital threat, so he can hold off any push that comes in. Anyone who tries to challenge, and they should just about be able to get that player back on his feet. So for now, they're good. They're holding this ground, but they have to keep moving. They have to keep going forward because in 40 seconds time, the zone is going to close and they're going to be forced to fight.
Ultimate still available for Shiny as well. I think the exhibit may have been used by CCE, and that could prove to be an annoyance a little bit later, unless it was the enemy exhibit, which is entirely possible with the amount of seers that are in the lobby right now. But CCE looking to try and take advantage of the fight that's happening in the building opposite. One team does get wiped, and now CCE will push.
Send it. They've got to send it. They try and death ball through this slim opening. One player is already down. There's a Horizon queue as well. Oh, the amount of numbers I just saw on my screen made my head spin in circles as the amount of damage is enough for them to force their way in and around zone. A big play coming in here from CCE. Shiny's got to get the smokes down, but can't do it because the Nemesis strikes hard from Zanio and Oxygen.
And the noise you made almost sounded like Thor's hammer, but CCE down to just one. Exit are in the area and looking to try and capitalize on some very weak enemies and pick up some free KP. CCE NRG do get eliminated. XZ do pick up the kills, and now your kill leader is going to be on XZ as well, who now dominate this side of the map, and they can just comfortably walk in if they choose to. But of course, with the composition they have the ability to skyward dive. But we've already seen skyward dives are not going to work when it is a trench finish. So I would hope that XZ will go on foot.
XZ are going to be really primed, though, to make the most of any smokes they see go down. They're not running the Bangalore themselves, which is interesting to see, of course.
Enemy there.
But they do have a lot of digital threats between them, so anyone that tries to smoke them off, they're going to be more than happy to take that fight. 100 Thieves, again, involved in a great position. We saw how quick their rotate was. That huge Valkyrie ultimate just kind of taking most of Storm Point out of the equation as they found the trench to play. Noxious are going to be eliminated as well, as we now find ourselves down to 11. And with 11, all of a sudden it could become 10, because XZ get caught off guard here by LG, and it's Sykes and Nocturnal now who have to do the heavy lifting.
Both exhibits go down. It's panic exhibits that happen so often where you just want to be able to do as much as you can. I thought I got too excited there with a 450 because I couldn't see, but it was just a shield that was being broken on one of the players that was knocked down. But LG into the top 11, as you mentioned, will make their way towards the first trench, and it's going to be like more one of the situations where you have to work together here and make sure you're looking at the same things.
Well, Luminosity do manage to do a good job. It looked a little bit worrying there as Yanya dropped down. If he wasn't on Valkyrie, he might be dead for now, and Luminosity might be thinking about rezzing him instead of moving forward. But Zone is going to be closing. LG trying to prioritize here some KP on the edge of Zone. They've managed to find somewhere to play, but XZ still in front of them as a duo. 100 Thieves also here, looking for any third-party opportunities. But NRG, they've now got to wrap through from the position they've been holding down for so long to try and force their way into end zone. Sweet with the Kraber is always something to watch. Let's see if the big man can hit some shots.
And it's the same teams that are in the good positions yet again. It's NRG, it's Furia, it's Dark Zero, it's 100 Thieves, it's XZ. I mean, these are the teams that we've been talking about for the last week or so about being able to get to these late game situations. There is so much talent right now in North America, though, that can be the difference between what top 10 and a top 5 is just making sure you can get past some of these absolute powerhouses in this region.
Sweet's looking to line them up at the moment. Taking so much space, commanding so much place, and NRG just making their presence known with this Kraber. Nobody's going to push them. Oh my goodness, for a second there, I thought it was going to be more like 10-pin bowling than Apex Legends as everybody lined up. And Sweet says, who do you think you are? I am.
Just watching the little crevice that he can see, hoping to see a slither of a forehead that he can just slam home one of the Kraber bullets. But of course, with the changes, is not going to be a knock nowadays, but just the damage alone is keeping that team at bay, as NRG, though, still have to think about where they're gonna go, as that one narrowly misses the hair of the enemy. And for Energy, look at the amount of space they have to cover, though, to get to this next circle. They know full well there's going to be teams holding them out, and I think that's why Sweet is so aware of the team that is on the southern side of them right now.
Another thing you have to be aware of on Bangalore is managing your smokes, making sure that you've got one to make across. Sweet's got a chance to hit a big shot here, but again, even with his big old hat on, Seer managed to avoid that bullet flying through the sky by the skin of his teeth.
Very slender, though, is Seer. I'd like to say that I'm of a similar build, and you can dodge a sniper bullet here or there. Haven't done it in real life, but maybe one day. We now see NRG pushing through, and Oxygen get eliminated because Sweet's able to just clean up the final pieces there. And now this is the smoke that you were talking about, right? You have to have it available to you, and there's the lay of the land. This is where they're going to be moving. Dark Zero, XZ, LG, 100 Thieves, and NRG all have to move in.
Furia in a good position as well, just playing on the back of this building. Dark Zero walking down as well, and Dark Zero kind of commanding this side of the zone. They seem to be the only team that's here. Look at Sykes and Nocturnal, though. It looks like they're going to hit a Valkyrie redeploy. They're going up into the skies. They want to see if they can avoid everything and land on the side of all of the carnage. 100 Thieves now in a little bit of trouble. Scurry trying to survive, but can't. Vaxlon now left on his own, trying to do some magical things, but 100 Thieves will not make it back-to-back wins as Luminosity move in to clean up the pieces.
This is when you've just got to hit your shots, and this is where the digi threats are going to come into play. Bang smokes are going to be everywhere. 8 squads remain, as those 5 squads I mentioned have to push into these trenches where already occupation is had. Dark Zero doing the damage, though, as the other team is going to have to scamper back to try and survive.
Jem Burton says, follow me, boys, I'm going in. And he manages to go in, indeed. He gets the shield swap, does not take a huge amount of damage. Luminosity wiped to the side by the car of Jem Burton and co. Wonderful play from him. saw the damage, capitalized on it as we move our attention towards this building now. This is where the teams are stacked up, and NRG are playing on the outside right now. Furia know where they are, but has Sweet swapped out that Kraber? Does he still have it in his hands, and can he change the momentum of this game with one bullet?
So the positions I want to focus on here, NRG are in a good enough spot, but probably get griefed by all these teams in the building. CLG, arguably in a very strong position in this mini circle as well, as long as they don't get too much grief from Dark Zero, who are in one of the prime spots, but NRG not allowing Optic to escape easily and looking to try and take advantage of one of their spots right now.
NRG just wrapping behind this team underneath all of the carnage that's going down. Sweet gets out of his life. Optic Gaming eliminated as well. NRG managing this endgame so well, and the amount of KP they've picked up on their way to do so and getting into this endgame is commendable to say the least. They now have to make their next move though. Exit, I think they've just been eliminated from the team up on the high ground as well. CLG, they're down in the trenches outside of this building, but Dark Zero, they're the team who are watching all of this craziness unfold in front of them. They're the ones who have the pick of the litter right now.
Yeah, Dark Zero and CLG are my favorites to win this game at the moment. The rest of the teams that are all going to be jumping off this building or around this building should naturally fight each other. Dark Zero just have to be careful. Dark Zero going to grief CLG though. That's bad news for CLG. Dark Zero cannot afford to lose a player though. They need to back off and make sure they're healthy, but they had shield swaps at the ready.
I mean, Dark Zero, it was Zero himself who swung, and he was taken out at almost 0 HP. There was almost too many zeros for Zero to deal with in that situation. Dark Zero trying again just to harass this team, hoping that when the teams leave that building, they fall into a weak CLG and make their life so much easier by doing the work for them. But the question now is, can Dark Zero stay alive for long enough for the zone to start to have an effect? The question looks like it's about to be answered as AJC up on this Highlander causing some problems as NRG lose Gildersons.
These circles never simple as well because of the dark veils going down, covering all of your visuals, making sure that you need to have someone who can at least give you a sight line or give you that exhibit to give you the heartbeats, to give you that information that go through the walls here.
AJC down to just 2 though. Capra and Boat trying to do what they can as a duo in this endgame. They do have the height, but at some point you gotta drop. CLG will be eliminated, but Dark Zero, now they're getting harassed, now they're getting pestered by Furia. AJC made their move down from the high ground. They will be eliminated as well as Furia now make their move, and what a game this could be for Furia. With 3 squads remaining, they come out on top of the building battle, and they have KP in front of them too.
Incredible hit from Furia. Who's the other team though? That's the big question right now.
Pandas needs to get the shield swap. Pandas, did he get the shield swap? It doesn't matter because Furia do the damage before he even has to change. It's Furia who pick up a win here in our first game on Stormpoint, and it was all about who left that building last, and Furia, they managed to clutch up when it mattered.
A Furia back? I think Furia might be back here. A big question for me would be what Dark Zero did and how they went down. We jumped away from their POV just as the action unfolded, but I mean, Glitter, as I've said before, the trenches is one of my favorite final circles, and it did not disappoint.
No, not at all. There was a point where I thought that AJC had held out just long enough on the roof that they were going to be able to be the ones that took that game home. But Furia, they just look a little bit too good right now, and they didn't drop all the way down, so that just slight advantage was what ended up having them bring home the win. But even so, I mean, we're seeing a comeback from Furia in general. And even with DZ going out early, even we're early-ish, with XET going out early-ish, we're still seeing consistency out of those teams, keeping them in a top spot, getting placement points on the board, and keeping themselves in the conversation when it comes to the points. Because we're going to start really talking about those a lot as we continue to move towards the close of the day. And right now, those teams are looking a little bit scary, Mark.
They are, and I'm finding these end games fascinating as well because we've had some really, really good end games, like little micro decisions making the difference. And I was very impressed with actually, you know, how CLG survived for quite some time, because I thought they were going to be the first team with Dark Zero kind of harassing them, doing damage. When everyone started to leave and everyone fell down to that low ground, CLG were kind of in a position, because they were taking damage, that someone was going to go down, but they held their ground pretty well. And every time that Dark Zero tried to swing on them, they would exchange fire and get the better of them the majority of that time. But those end circles are fascinating. It's always best to watch those end circles back and hear the comms of the teams, because Furia navigating that traffic is pretty wild for them to come out of that situation with all 3 players still on their feet. I think that's the most impressive thing about how they managed that.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of chaos, and all of that micro, I think it was actually Sweet that was the last one standing up against Furia at the end there as well. So NRG able to get themselves into a good spot there at the end. But The real question is who's going to be able to stop. If this is the Furia we get, Dan, they're going to have the aggression. And apparently they've now got the more reserved decision making. Who stops that Furia?
It's like Fury have got that last Infinity Stone, right? They've started to put all the pieces together and then they snap their fingers and the end game just seems to fall right into place. And I think that is a terrible, terrible thing for the rest of the lobby, because when Furia were at their best, they were one of the biggest threats when it came to the way they used to fight. If you then add their ability in these final circles, they become one of the best teams in the lobby without a shadow of a doubt. And we posed a question right at the start of the day. What do Furia have to do differently to try and regain that form? Is it about being patient at the right time? Is it about making slightly different calls from the IGL when you get into those final circles? And it does seem like they have been studying, they have done the research, they have found out what was going wrong in this meta, and they have found an answer for it, and it has been very impressive to watch.
This was actually another thing that I noticed, because yet again, we've got CCE just absolutely inting on people on set. I mean, they've kind of been a chaos factor all day.
They have. They were playing edge of zone there. They were forced to take that fight with the zone closing behind them, but they did it so effectively that it was really, really impressive. But Sweet there, I thought that was going to be one of those clips that goes into a montage, that goes into the next trailer, because two people pop up. There's the chance for the collateral to come in. And Sweet, you let me down. I mean, I've got to be honest with you, you didn't do anything wrong, but you still let me down by somehow not making something happen. But it was a good game for NRG once again. You know, they've been involved in, I would say, every single end zone that we've had so far today, pretty much. Maybe apart from game one, where they let themselves down a little bit. But apart from that, the way they've navigated towards these end games has been what you would expect from NRG. And if they did manage to pull out a second place with Sweet ratting, that would be even more impressive to me. I'll have to rewatch and catch who was that second place as we go into it. But again, Dark Zero involved in endgame, like you mentioned. It's the big dogs who just keep seeming to be there and thereabouts.
And if this is how they're going to be right now, and we even heard when we did the interviews, we had the players talk about it right now in these 6-game series, the consistency is what matters. It's not even necessarily about getting those wins, Gaston. It's about constantly putting yourself in a spot to get the points.
Yeah, wins aren't as important right now as you are building the points and you are getting towards playoffs. But as we know, once you're at playoffs, when you're at champs, match point comes into effect. So it's always good practice to have those victories under your belt. But the kills spread somewhat evenly across the top teams. Everyone was being able to pick up KP there. It was pandemonium in that final circle where everyone just got involved, and it was about hitting your shots in those moments. It's all well and good to trust your IGL to get you into the final circles, but that's when you need your best players to step up, do the damage, and give yourself the best chance to win.
And we've got the answer here on set as well. It was Sweet who was able to clutch up second place for NRG, getting that many more points for them. So now they've got the 17-point game as well. And then we'll move down to the second page with all of these kills being spread out and see what the scores are for the rest of our teams. A little bit of a surprise still that now Glitch Energy dropped down a little bit. Drug Free still struggling on the day. And they're going to need to pick it up with a few more matches left.
Yeah, I mean, Glitch Energy, we're in a pretty good spot. They made a difficult Valk rotation where they had to try and thread the needle between 100 Thieves and NRG, and not many teams are going to come out on the good side of that. They were kind of a second away from maybe getting a Dark Veil down to give them a reset. They managed to get 2 players up, but it's always difficult. If you find in the trenches, you've got 2 3-man teams either side of you, you're not going to last too long. But I think the most impressive rotation for me was actually 100 Thieves in that huge Valkyrie rotate that they hit to get into a good spot. Just weren't able to execute from then on. But I mean, you look at the overall standings, and Dan kind of like said it with a little bit of a wait a minute, a Furia back. Well, they're just about back right now, only by 2 points. But if it ends up like this, then you have to say maybe they are.
Well, we still have 2 more matches left to go. Right now, the point spread is pretty close, so it's still anybody's game as far as taking that top spot on the day. We're going to send it to a quick break, and when we return, game number 5 coming right at you.
WD Black, the official storage partner of the Apex Legends Global Series.
Do you want me to wait around for like...
Monster Energy, the official energy drink of the Apex Legends Global Series.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to day 3 of Split 2 of the ALGS for our NA region. We are 4 out of 6 matches done, with match number 5 right around the corner. We've sent Gaskin for a quick break, so on set, we're going to bring you back in so we can just get straight into this next match, because it's probably going to determine a lot for our points. We saw how close they were heading into that break, and we've seen lots of teams really starting to step it up.
Was very, very impressive, and I think we've got to continue to see Furia kind of run with that momentum that they have on their side, and see if they can keep these big kill point games coming with a little bit of patience thrown in as well for those end games.
You know, we even saw the tweet on the break. We're watching people on social also recognizing the patience that Furia is showing us here today. It is the perfect combination of what we need out of this team. And if this is something that they can keep up for the rest of the split, it will be putting them in such a solid spot for playoffs.
Well, Fury are going to get the ring console now, so they're going to get a little bit of information, and we're going to show you the map overhead as well and give you that information, hopefully at home, as well as to where we're going to go. But I think this is a Gale station ending, if you were to ask me, and it might be that one indeed. Look at that, Lauren, eh? I mean, I'm going to say I've got a few wrong today, but luckily when I've been like calling them and live, it's been correct. So I'm quite happy.
I think you've just wanted it to be a Gale station ending anytime it's even remotely.
It's a Gale station ending here, Lauren. I assure you, Gale station. No chance of anything else. If it goes back to Launchpad, by the way, I'm just like DCing and giving up. It's Gale station.
I have faith in your zone prediction. Okay, you've been right all day. I don't think you've ever missed a zone so far.
I definitely have.
No, I don't remember. You can't prove it.
Fine. If you want to give that confidence towards my zone calls, then you're more than welcome. But yeah, I've definitely got something wrong today. But anyway, let's look at what Fury are doing, and they're going to be doing what they do best, and that is making sure that they can loot the armory and get everything they need to get to that end game with full kit and every single attachment that you could possibly want to take those engagements. They're going to need to as well, because this is a tough rotation for them over at Lightning Rod, all the way down south, having to go all the way from one tip of the map to the other. So Fury are going to have to be dangerous, looted and suited and booted to make sure when they get in those fights, they're going to have all of the advantage they can play with.
Yeah, definitely going to end up being a few squads that they could potentially have to run through now. Checking in with OXG, as they are also making their rotation nice and early. A bunch of these teams going to try to get down there as quickly as possible, because everyone that already landed there is going to be setting up shop nice and comfortable. And we had kind of talked about some of those teams that'd be down there. LG, this should work out in their favor considering where they dropped. So considering how aggressive they've been, might be beneficial.
Might be beneficial indeed. LG, this is a really good spot for them. I mean, SCS, they're already working their way in as well. Dark Zero, they're making a rotation down from the south, and that's going to be, I think, Dark Zero in the Trident trying to escape, and they have to kind of set things up. But I think there might be a team who's pinching them as well. And also, all of a sudden, it looks like even with the Catalyst wall down, this team wants Dark Zero dead. Dark Zero managed to reset for now, but SCS up on that high ground did enough damage and scared them off and forced that bang ult, meaning that that won't be available for Dark Zero to push from.
For a second, I was worried. I'm not gonna lie. I thought that maybe
terrified.
that they would just try to push this and see if they could maybe take out a massive heavy hitter in the lobby early. Not that they would know, but that would have been an insane thing to do if they were able to close that one out instead. Trying to play this a little bit more safe and get themselves a solid spot in this building over here. We can see those pings coming out, trying to decide where they want to be. Decide to bail a little bit. Now they're out in the open, and this is not good on set.
I mean, nobody knew where they wanted to go. It was as simple as that. No one made the call. No one made the ping. Everybody split up, and they just got picked apart. It's as simple as that. And Dark Zero now, having survived that initial push, all of a sudden 5 tripods up to their waists in the water. This is not good. They are not wearing the suitable swimwear, I would imagine. Tripods here. They are sitting ducks, and this is a very I don't know what to say. What is happening right now? Sharky's taking the boat out to meet him, maybe to throw him a lifeline or a life ring, a life jacket. I don't know. This is one of the most ridiculous players I've seen in ALGS.
I feel like the Tridents, they're just spelling disaster for people right now. If you have one, you die. Tripods just went out so early because of a DC now taking damage because of being in theirs and way out in the open. This is going to be so bad, and it's at the hands of Glitch Energy.
It's all I can do right now.
I can't.
Honestly.
Oh my God.
Tripods dive 50 meters out in the water behind a tripod. Dark Zero look like they're going out on a rescue mission. They get taken down as well. One gets finished as well. I'm not gonna lie, this feels like one of those games of scrims where everyone's going, what are these guys doing? Like, why are they doing that? But this is the ALGS. This is game 5. Oh, Glitch Energy, please. Just stay out the Tridents.
And SCS just went down after their indecisive Valk rotate. They are now out in the kill feed as well. It's like, how is it? The first raid hasn't closed.
Everyone just needs to relax in this lobby right now. Seriously, just put the Tridents to the side. Let's chill, everyone. Okay, cool. 18 squads remaining. I would say it's been an entertaining start to this game, Lauren. I don't know about you.
I'm really struggling right now to understand what was in the water for match number 5 because
someone had a treasure map or something. Like there was a big X on someone's screen. Because it was more Pirates of the Caribbean than Apex Legends. But for now, I'm just kind of glad it's over and we can get back to what really matters here. That's NRG rotating.
And potentially rotating right into a team. We'll have to see if they're able to make their way past. You can see on the map that they do. Not going to really mess with anybody right now, staying around the edge and getting themselves somewhere safer. And look how many teams have made their way down to Fish Farms. I mean, I don't think it's safe down there. If anybody brings another vehicle of any sort, it might spell disaster, but right now they're at least holding a little bit of space. Some poke damage is going down between some of the teams that have already set up shop.
Well, it looks like Oxygen are going to win a fight here, and it's good news for them because they haven't had the best of days so far, but Noxious will be taken down. Good news, everybody. You can ignore me once again. It's not going to be a Gale Station end because the zone has just pulled away from them, and the one team who's inside of that zone who are looking very, very healthy right now, Exit. Exit have made a great call on that zone. They didn't go all the way deep into Gale Station where the likes of Dark Zero Tripods tried to make that rotation. Glitch Energy still holding out the southern side of it, but Oxygen Esports, they're going to be in a really good spot towards this end game as well, especially with that KP on board as well.
Listen, I'm not saying that Exit has having a very similar performance to their day 2, but they are. And this match on day 2 was the match that they won. So there is the potential for them to take this one home. They've looked good all day and have had very similar placements and KPs to what they did the first time around consistency-wise. So this might be the opportunity for Exit to bring home the dub.
They're currently holding out Optic as well, and they got the knock. It was the Sentinel in the hands of Nocturnal who did manage to just peel away at one player from Optic Gaming who are trying to hold off, and Exit are fully sending it on our map overhead in the moment. Great switch from the observers as well to try and capitalize on this, but Nox back on his feet, even though he hasn't had the time to pop a med kit. He has managed to get the shields back up, so Exit having to decide what to do here. They decide this isn't the fight for now. They didn't close that gap quick enough, and now they scarper away. They let Optic exist. They let Optic survive because they know this is not the smarter play. But Skill Cakes is back for revenge, get some damage down, but there's that charge rifle just to make sure that all Exit players can escape and manage to heal up.
Definitely a safer call here on behalf of Exit. That frag that they threw in, that Sykes threw in, it did hit, but they were too far split at that point to really commit to that fight, and Optic has already recovered quite nicely, and then they end up taking a lot of poke damage here as a result of having to back off. We'll end up using a lot of their meds to try and recover from that. But I do appreciate the conservative choice because they are in such a good spot right now in the zone. They don't really need to force it if they don't want to.
Yeah, 17 squads remaining as well. The likelihood of that fight going down quickly after they saw that Optic got knocked back onto his feet was very low. You never know what teams are in the vicinity, how close they are, but CCE, they're in a fight at the moment. Shiny's going to go down. The EVA 8 doesn't hit quite as hard as he would have wanted. Prophet has to take a second here to pop a Barry, but I'm going to have to cancel that heal and use that car to do some damage himself. Shiny has been finished off as well, so he'll have to play the rest of this game as a death box unless they can get that banner back in and get him back on his feet. A little flank coming in here from Prophet. It's now a 1v1. CCE versus Dig, and there's the Horizon Q to get up above and maybe heal as well, but there's a player in front of him, and oh no, CCE go down as Luminosity move in for the third party to pick up the pieces.
The chaos factor that is CCE today is just completely unmatched. Luminosity taking advantage of what they forced the other squad into in Dig, able to third party that, and nice clean up there from Jaguares onto the final player for Drop-In Gaming, and just more KP on the board for Luminosity.
Dark Zero back, by the way. Dark Zero, Jen Burton got away with the banners. Managed to get the res all the way over at Shipfall, I think it was, and now they're on the back of Luminosity. And if Luminosity aren't careful here and they take too much damage, they have no idea that Dark Zero are behind them. So they have to be so aware, and they're going to hit that cannon. They're going to try and overtake them. Dark Zero needs to get into zone. They don't have barely anything to play with. They got 2 paper towels on Zero and Sharky, which might be suitable for heading into the water, and they're going to have to head into the water.
That was a scary choice to have to make. They just barely make it out by the skin of their teeth. Heals being dropped to see if they can potentially continue on this very dangerous rotation into somewhere safe. They don't know if there's people in the building in front of them, and they're going to have to see if they can even get somewhere not in the water, because the water has not boded well for any team that's decided to fight there. Luminosity, though, now with no one at their back, don't have to worry about any sort of surprise attacks and just can continue poking them if they really want to.
100 Thieves in a great spot for this end zone as well. It is going to pull slightly down south as well, away from where Xep find themselves. They're controlling the hill. They're controlling the high ground. As LG now know with Dark Zero in front of them that they can mirror their rotation. This is so smart from LG. They know that Dark Zero are weak. They got the armor checks on them, and now they're behind them. Now they're doing damage. As also teams which inside of some of those buildings in fish farms are contributing too, but Luminosity know this is KP for them. They want to try and hunt this down. They know that Dark Zero are in a little bit of a shambles at the moment, but they're also very aware that those teams in front of them are going to be trying to hold them out. So LG have got to pick their poison here and make sure that even though they're desperate for those kills and they know they're waiting for them, that they don't get picked off and take too much damage, because they've got quite a way to go.
I'm not gonna lie though, between that dark veil and those smokes, DZ survived for a lot longer and made a lot farther of a rotation than I had initially thought they would. Now they find themselves running into Glitch Energy, and Glitch Energy actually backing away from that, not wanting to really force that engagement, potentially unsure of who's actually in front of them, but DZ still alive to see another day.
Well, Glitch Energy, they're still alive and they're still looking strong, and these guys are pretty calm, cool, and collected when it comes to communication. We've got an opportunity with 50 seconds left on the clock for us to line up a listen-in, so let's do that. Let's jump into the comms of Glitch Energy.
Oh, no.
Should be.
I saw a Catalyst earlier, and they have Seer, and they bangled today.
Wait, yeah, I saw a bang. Yeah, you're right.
What's our play here? We can't zip up on Mirage, man. Can't.
Can't Falcold either.
What if we...
We're gonna die. I think we have to Valkyrie, bro.
No, we have to kill the right team. We have to kill the right team.
I have no wall. You didn't even...
Yeah, he has Ultic
I
cells.
think we have to, like, go up to Mirage.
Why can't we kill them? We can wall.
We're just gonna die on the zip vein. Like, where do we zip up?
No, look, there's zips that zip up to the bottom rooms. There's a zip right here. Did you see that? It's like into a bottom.
Yeah, we'd have to get that one, and then we
You
just
have to get his
kill.
cat wall. Give him Ultic cell, man.
I'm out this door, probably. What am I walling off, though? The left? Yeah. I mean, I can only wall off one side. And...
Team left. They need a wall us left, and then we have to slide out together. Let's do it now. Let's do it now. Let's do it now, so we can start like working.
Well, it sounded pretty calm. Obviously, the decision not quite being made efficiently, but you can see the plan is in place. NRG and 100 Thieves, though, Lauren, they're about to have a little bit of a scrap here on the edge of zone.
And it seems like they had already partially gotten into it. You see how low the health was of some of those NRG players. 100 Thieves now down to a duo. That is less than ideal, but they do have the banner. Don't really think it's going to be able to help them that much right now, but they are backing away from NRG. We also saw Optic in the kill feed. We're seeing Glitch Energy now going down in the kill feed. And as this circle shrinks, everyone that's on that northern side of the zone is forced into all of these fights.
Glitch Energy eliminated as well, so 100 Thieves trying to survive. They can get that read on the care package as well. So they'll know that there's an RE45 to play with if they want to overextend and try and pick that one up. Team Inter's eliminated as well, down to now just 12. And look at Rise up on this high ground, by the way. This is the team that looked like they were in complete shambles when they made the Valkyrie. They all split up, but they've managed to get back into a great position on top of Mirage Etoile. And with 3 of them still in the game, they can make some plays here.
I think that also might have been the final player on DZ going down. I think Zero might have been the last one up and just saw him in the water. Not exactly having the best time. OXG pinching him with CLG, so that was a rough spot for them to be in. And honestly, the recovery was already going to be a tough road, and they weren't able to do anything with their positioning, unfortunately. But NRG, 100 Thieves back on top of each other now as Vaxlon goes on top of the rock to try and meet Sweet here for this fight. Sweet gets a knock and is instantly knocked himself. So how will this play out for NRG? They're going to be able to recover here.
Gonna try and stick it. Oh, Sweet gets re-knocked there. Scurry now left on his own. All of a sudden, 100 Thieves are making this a very, very uncomfortable couple of moments for NRG. It's a 1v1. As Gildersons just has to do the flesh damage, the catwall goes down. He's going to fly through it, but he can't connect at the moment. Gildersons is having a nightmare here trying to finish off this final player. 100 Thieves making this horrible, but finally Gilderson clutches up. Nathan back on his feet. Sweet back on his feet as well. 100 Thieves eliminated, and that is now NRG in a great position, but here comes CLG. They have waited for this moment. They see the damage is done. Can they collapse though? Will NRG be able to hold up on this high ground?
You know, I feel like CLG might have just been a half of a second too late because NRG, they're not fully healthy, but they do at least have their shields back with a little bit of distance and some poke in their favor that will give them enough time to possibly get fully healed up right now. And they also have these boxes around them. This could be a little bit scary if CLG decides to make this push. It's been a little bit too long.
Q's coming in. CLG can't push out from this position at the moment because they're getting shot in the back. So CLG having to play this slow and hope that someone influences this fight. They might just about be safe on the edge of zone. Oxygen in the kill feed as well. They'll pick up one. Enemy gets that first knock. That fight is happening down by Fish Farms as teams try and force their way in. Optic are inside of the zone as well, but here come Furia. They're trying to influence this endgame. Panda's having a pop of bat. His Watson is down, but CLG have been eliminated. So NRG now in a great position to maybe once again be in the endgame, but they go down as well. And all of a sudden, all these teams collapsing. Rise is coming as well. Furia up in this high ground. Two players still left on their feet, and they might be able to get the res on his Watson as well.
OXG also now down in the kill feed as Fury is trying to continue at least doing a little bit of damage while keeping themselves alive. Everyone's starting to get very low as they drop down and try to clean this up, but Furia goes down. It's now Luminosity who's able to clean up this corner. Meanwhile, BBB's down in the kill feed. We saw Exit popping off a little bit. I mean, there is so much happening, and LG just put themselves in such a great spot until Exit shows up and decides that they want all of the loot to themselves, cleaning up LG very quickly. One player left alive. Sykes just needs to close this out, and LG goes down.
Need to get Nocturnal back on his feet as quickly as possible, though they do have that RE45, and that was the difference maker once again. In those team fights, it just cripples the shields that are in front of them. And Sykes managed to do a huge amount of damage as Drug-Free inside of the top three. They've been almost silent today after their pop-up performance the first time we saw them, but they're in with a chance here, but so are Optic Gaming. And has this week been the turn of the change of fortunes for some of our previous juggernauts? We've seen it from Furia. Now can Optic close this out?
Optic had taken over the rock that NRG was on top of, and they're looking very strong right now going up against this squad, and the only thing that could potentially stand in the way is going to be Exit wrapping around. And does Optic know where they are? Because right now, this is going to be the final 3v3 of this game.
It's a straight shootout between Exet and Optic Gaming. Drug-Free eliminated. All of Exet dressed in red, full Evo shields, taking the rocks. And they have the zone as well. So now you can see that Optic have got to make some moves. And Optic are going to put that capital down and try and swing out and try and catch one of these members off guard. It's brilliant from Optic. If they can make this cross and if they can heal up, then Exet will all of a sudden go from having zone to having to push Optic Gaming.
Exit right now looking across the way, trying to see if they can land any sort of damage from a distance and give themselves an advantage before they have to take this fight. But the small advantage that they have is going to allow them here to try and wait for as long as possible. With the split, the off angle from Skittlecakes is going to be so dangerous for Exit as they try to use this rock for cover. Nocturnal poking out to the side a little bit to see what he can do from his own off angle as they start to stalemate each other a little bit here.
That rotation from Optic was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. From XF sitting in a position up on the high ground saying, hey, you have to come to us. They get the Dark Veil down and they say, hey, You got to come to us now. We've got angles. We've got skittle cakes up on that high ground. Our high ground is going to be in this zone for longer than yours. But what utility does Exit have available? Do they have a Dark Veil to try and cut this zone in half? To try and focus onto two of these players from Optic? It's a really, really interesting end zone and the final fight between these two teams. Optic have done great to be in this position, let alone to take the priority of this zone away from Exit.
All right, this is going to be... It's all going to come down to whoever decides to make the first move here, and if that first move works, and it ends up being X, that we see the Dark Veil come down, and they start making their push over towards Optic. Will this be the right call for them? We're seeing a little bit of damage coming in from Fun here, as the rest of the two have wrapped around to the other side. The second Dark Veil goes down, and now we have one massive wall separating this final zone. Exit gets a crack here, but still finding themselves in a little bit of a back and forth with Optic.
It's the great wall of Storm Point that's been constructed right now, right down at the southern tip. Noct is down to barely any HP. Skill Cakes manages to get the res. Now the ultimates have been expired. It comes down to a straight shootout between the two teams. The only problem is Noct is almost naked at the moment. He's got nothing to work with, and Sykes with the RE45 is again going to be the game changer. Excess should take this one home as Sykes does so much for his team. He gets that first knock, and Exet will close it out. But what a fascinating final 3v3 that was between those two teams. Optic almost had it. But Exet just kept themselves in that fight until that final moment. And again, the RE45, that's the difference maker. That is what gets the knock. But that was a lot of fun to watch. My brain was going, this is brilliant. This is so fun. Keep going. Like, go on for another 10 minutes. This is wonderful.
Listen, I don't want to say that for some reason Game 5 on Stormpoint is Exet's bread and butter, but that's what it's seeming like right now.
You actually called it. Yeah, you called exactly that. That's wild.
I'm saying. I don't know how they do it. Maybe they heard me, but phenomenal performance. And that might be the most fun end zone, the final fight that we've seen in the final circle all day, Dan.
All right, don't make me too jealous that I wasn't there for it, but at least I got to watch, because it was weird how they both just accepted they were going to wait for the next Dark Veils to come up. They went, actually, neither of us feel like we have enough of an advantage to take this fight right now, so we're just going to wait it out. And then once the Dark Veils come back up, suddenly the fight started to unfold, and I think Mark touched on it, RE45 goes burr, and it means that it's going to do enough damage to ensure that these teams are going to be able to take the advantages. And Exit doing Exit things as always. I also think that Drug Free picked up more points in that game than they did throughout the entirety of Stormpoint in week 1. So it's good that they found a little bit of success here on this map too.
Honestly, I really thought for a split second when Skittlecakes had that off angle that it was potentially going to be the downfall of Exit, but they handled everything so well and worked as this flawless unit. Once they decided to just group up, throw down the Dark Veil, and make that push in, they handled every single decision perfectly. Even to the point where Sykes went in, did the damage with the RE45, saw how low he was getting, and timed their staggering perfectly. He backed off without even dying, was able to get back on a little bit of the higher area just in case they needed the damage to close the whole thing out. I mean, that was like chef's kiss on set.
That's why we love this game, right? It's those little minute moments. And when you have a straight 3v3, you really get to like appreciate every decision that's being made. And there's one thing I think we need to highlight in that end game as well. I'm pretty sure that Noct didn't have any big meds to fully heal up. So he was kind of at a big disadvantage. I'm so happy, by the way, that we ended on such a high note, because the start of this game was one of the most ridiculous starts that I've seen to a game of Apex Legends in quite some time. Like, Dan, I'm going to ask your opinion on this. Like,
on Dark Zero using the Trident?
I mean, Tripod's dying 100 yards out in the water, then Dark Zero trying to send a lifeboat out, getting cut down as well. I mean,
everyone got a little bit overexcited, I feel. Maybe the adrenaline from game number 4 was carried over into game number 5. We started it very quickly, and people didn't necessarily think about what they were getting themselves into. That's what it felt like. Or maybe they just didn't care. Maybe they were in a position where they were like, you know what, we've got enough to throw away. We've got so many points, but you've got to be careful. You can't throw away these games. But yeah, an incredible match number 5 to watch. And I do think the further we get into these games, the further we get into these match days, we are going to see more ridiculous things happening as people do take more risks, as people do try something that's maybe a little bit out of the norm. Because if you just try and play too safe all of the time, you're going to let yourself just slowly and surely fall down these leaderboards. The teams that are chasing, they have to find ways to try and catch up.
And when we get to this portion of the late game, I mean, Furia was doing so much work from this rock, but then it just kind of became the drop down to this area was just so dangerous. Furia goes down, and then LG comes in, and then Exit drops down on top of them, and it was no longer a safe space, Mark.
No, it wasn't. It became a little bit of a graveyard, but it was Sykes. I mean, in this position as well, I was like, where's Fun? Like, why is Fun doing no damage here? And it's because I think Fun was holding the high ground and eventually decided to drop. He wanted to try and anchor his team. He thought they could get that job done nice and quickly. Optic Gaming, this push onto Drug Free, though, this was almost exemplary. You know, no mistakes being made whatsoever, just forcing them into some horrible positions. But how the tables kept turning in this endgame fight was so fascinating. I want to keep my eyes on the shields from Noct as well, because I think it might have been a bit of a game changer, but 151 with the RE45. It doesn't matter who you are, what armor you're wearing. If you walk into Sykes and he's got that gun in his hands, you're not going to have a very happy time, and you're certainly not going to have a good story to tell everyone afterwards.
And I know that we weren't hyping up Optic a lot there, but they were popping up in the kill feed a lot. So I'm glad that we get to see what their kills are here, because they end up with 8 and that second place finish, almost tying Exit, who takes home the dub. Phenomenal performance from both of those teams. Even LG with the 6 KP. This was a very aggressive game from start to finish, even if we struggled to take it a little bit seriously at the beginning, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, we brought it back, let's be real. We had some good Apex to talk about at the end of it. But Exit at the top of the table, I mean, looking flawless at times with their decision making. And, you know, IGLs, good IGLs, and I would say brave IGLs are being rewarded in this meta at the moment. Navigating through to end zones, making good decisions when you feel like you're under pressure. And some teams and some IGLs might have wilted in that endgame when Optic made that rotation to take zone back off of Exit. They would go, oh no, that was my plan, it's fallen apart. But Exit had a plan B, they had a plan C, and they were able to execute without ever feeling kind of flustered or looking like they were in any kind of trouble. So Exit, once again, just navigating through those endgame moments superbly well. Nocturnal, a shout out to you. I think you've been on top of your game in recent weeks and in recent times, and I think he certainly is making a really good claim to being the best IGL in the world at the moment.
Yeah, I would not even try to fight you on that. And now we can see what that does for the series results. Fury is still on top, but only by 3 points. Exit solidifying that second place spot right now, heading into the final match of the day. Dan, what's jumping out at you here as we prepare for match number 6?
I mean, earlier in EMEA, it was a bit of a 2-horse race, but this is still wide open for what, 5 teams? I mean, potentially even 6. There is still a shout that Glitch could make a late run to try and take first place here. Maybe unlikely, but there are a lot of opportunities here for people to take all of the bread when it comes to the points for today's action. I mean, Furia might be on top right now, but they need to be taking a close look over their shoulder, because there are plenty of teams, and after that fiery Game 5, I'm sure Exit are going to feel like they can have another incredible week here.
Yeah, definitely going to be an important final game of day 3. But of course, it's time for one more short break. But when we return, match number 6, the final match on Storm Point for today. So don't go anywhere.
WD Black, the official storage partner of the Apex Legends Global Series.
One more game to go, everybody. Welcome back in the meantime. And I tell you what, the leaderboards today, Dan, I think we've been a little bit spoiled by how close these games have been and how difficult it's been to separate some of the teams that we've been seeing playing, because it all sets us up for a wonderful game 6 where we're not quite sure who's going to come out on top. Fury are currently at the top of the pile, looking good. But except with that winning game number 5, I tell you what, they look like they've got a fire in their belly, my friend.
It's one of those situations, is it? It's winner takes all, really, at this point. If any of those top 5 teams do find a victory here in this game, more than likely, they are going to be taking home all of the marbles in this one. And I'm very excited to see who just wants to take this game by the scruff of the neck. Oh, a different circle then. We're going to be heading to the northeast of the map. This is great news for a lot of the teams who have been rotating all day, it seems, as they've had to move from the north to the south, from the north to the west, but finally we get one that is going to be on the northern side.
It is indeed, and what a zone that is for a certain Furia, a team who are currently sat at the top of the leaderboards. Lightning Rod, very, very close to where we will be going. You would imagine that it's going to be a little bit to the side of where they find themselves right now, but you can already see a couple of teams immediately. Look how quick teams are rotating, by the way. Look how quick Exet have left. I think that gives us a really good indication on how important it is to get into High Point, how important it is to get a spot to play so that you can shoot all those teams who are having to rotate on one of the biggest verticality differences that you will have in any kind of end zone.
It was something that we spoke about when Storm Point was first released. With the difference in high ground and high ground advantage in this map, when you do have a circle that forces you to the northern side, you have to move quickly, because otherwise you are just going to be a sitting duck for a lot of these teams who have the high ground over you. Granted, we are going to see Valkyries make a difference to that and make a change on that, because you can take up... That's not where I expected Sweet to go. I don't think that's where Sweet expected to go, but thankfully is going to get a second shot at this one, and hopefully it works out.
Sweet found an airbag that was just like at the bottom of that cannon, just exploded in the wrong direction. But for NRG, everything's cool, everything's fine. Sweet's kind of caught him up. Nathan and Gilderson just leading the way for him. But entertaining, I would say, the last 2 games and the first few moments, for sure.
Well, that's what we can only ask for in the ALGS, right? A little bit of everything, a bit of humor, a bit of action, and of course, we want to see the best team win. I'm
sure the Sweet was laughing as well.
Wait, it's one of those things. I mean, I'm actually very certain I know what he would have said when it happened. Not going to repeat it on broadcast, but it does mean that, you know, it's just one of those things they can laugh about and they can move on from. But this is where we're going to see a lot of teams start to take residence, and almost looks like a fort, as every team is going to take a different level of it. And if you can get the highest of high grounds, of course, teams are going to have to battle upward on the stairs to try and take you down.
This is a perfect zone, though, for Furia. They've got the highest point. They've got the highest point of High Point. They're going to be able to chill for quite some time. You can see how quickly they've rotated as well. I mean, his Watson's rocking the alternator. I mean, still a decent gun, we all know, but it's probably not what you'd choose if you had the option to. The question is, do they have some range to do some damage so that they can level up those Evos? I'm sure that somebody's probably had a little bit of a think about that. The Nemesis is going to be... not with a scope, which makes it a little bit more difficult to hit those shots, but I kind of like that they're prioritizing the rotation, making sure they get into the best spot when it's available. And with zone prio, sometimes, Dan, you just have to play that way.
You have to, otherwise you find yourself in maybe like Thunder Watch, and you're just looking up at 12 different teams that are all just going to have a smile on their face while they charge rifle you from a distance, and you eventually fall back into the lobby with tears running down your face. It's not fun when you are one of the teams that are on the lower side of this map, so you have to move quickly. And I think those who are on the southern side, who know they're going to be rotating late, now is when you've got to be making the decision of, do we start looking for edge fights? Do we start looking for picking up some KP before we take that inevitable risk where we try and either skyward dive or try and force our way into a very difficult circle?
I'm just glad that we're not going to see anyone in the water, to be honest with you, in this game. I think it's more land. Everyone feels more comfortable on land, and I think the footing's certainly a little bit more secure. As we see another team now making their rotation. It's going to be Dark Zero going all the way through wall. They've got the big zip lines in front of them if they want to take those. Would be a little bit risky to do so with the amount of teams that are already ahead of them, but it's been a good day for Dark Zero so far. Outside of that last game, which was a little bit of a shambles, even though they managed to kind of reset for a few moments, they are actually going to take the zip line. It looks like they might be able to take this building. I'm not sure if there's anyone actually holding that down, and DZ might actually get a little bit lucky here.
Yeah, lucky, and sometimes you need a little bit of luck with your rotations. Sometimes you need to have those situations where the game just goes in your favor. And when we talk about, teams that are getting luck because of the ring coming towards them, if we can see that luck just distributed quite nicely between all the top teams right now to make it a bit more fair, then I'm okay with that.
Smoke right here.
Rise, been smoked off at the moment. This is happening outside of Lightning Rod, down on the low ground. You can see, like you called it, the big fort that's in front of them. And Rise taking damage. Retzi thought he probably had a kill waiting for him. But instead, he gets absolutely decimated. It is Sykes who has the flatline in his hands that does that damage. LB Rise now trying to reset, but not able to do so quite yet.
NRG just making sure they back off, and they will use any cover that they have. They didn't want to overextend here. Again, you have to be careful. 20 squads still on the map, remember. There are going to be a lot of eyes, a lot of weapons, a lot of potential charge rifles to ruin your day. So NRG were very hesitant to push up, but they're still having a look at it, still having a prod, still having a poke, because they want to level up these armors as well. It's something we don't necessarily focus on, because I think it's pretty obvious now in ALGS that you want to be doing damage to teams at a distance so you can have at least purples when you get into the later game.
NRG finding a spot to play, but it's looking like a little bit of an uncomfortable spot for them, I have to say. And if anyone can make it work, it is going to be NRG. And Sweet's already managed to route a few second place finishes, thirds, top fives, whatever it might be. As we get a little bit of lay land once more. Thunderwatch building is going to be inside of the zone, but you would imagine it's going to pull north away from them towards this open ground. AJC taking a little bit of damage and trying to do some damage themselves just onto a few rogue prowlers and making sure they get all the loot that they can. Optic, though, this is the interesting rotation for me. CCE are in front of them, holding down the top of that zip building. They're going to be able to scan and get a little bit of information, which is going to maybe give CCE's position away. But they're also going to see that it's pulling towards Lightning Rod. So a lot of info can actually be picked up by Optic here by hitting that beacon.
Yeah, I think it can be important to get any info, any extra info. It's always going to be good, but unfortunately, the result of the info that they get is going to be, okay, well, where do we go here? Because it doesn't look like there's much room to play. And when we spoke about the fortress, you want to be at the top, but at the same time, you can't really find anywhere in the middle because that's already been taken. So inevitably, you are just going to have to play edge. You're going to have to play one of these positions and try and force yourself in. Brute force, take a fight, and hope that you can win that engagement. The other option is you go for the risky skyward dive, but we've seen how that can end up. We saw it in game number 4 when teams were trying to dive in on the trenches, for example. There was just too many teams, too many eyes, and it is not that simple.
20 squads are still remaining in this game. There's only one player who's fallen at the moment, which is showing how everybody is approaching this final game. And I think it gives a really good indication, Dan, of how important these points are in the final game. That all goes back to the leaderboards and how close things are. These teams will know exactly how many points they want to achieve, how many points behind the team is it from their position they find themselves in, how many points in front the teams are in the positions they want to take away. And you're really starting to feel that. Every single team taking steps forward at the moment. It's no big Hail Marys. It's tiptoeing forward, chip damage, trying to see what happens in the lobby before you make your call. And this is, again, where the IGLs are going to make their money. It's where the macro is going to be really tested in those final moments. And if there's a couple of leaders you want in this lobby who have been performing well so far, I would say that Sweet's put his team in great positions. Nocturnal obviously done so. I think Dropped has been up there as well, putting him Optic in some good positions, especially in that last game.
I think another indication of how tight and how important this is legend selection. We have a 100% pick rate, ladies and gentlemen, of Seer. 20 teams, 20 Seers, and across the board, this is one of our most kind of normal compositions in terms of what everyone are picking. It's Seer and Catalyst for the most part, alongside a Valkyrie. We've got a sprinkle of Bang, and then there's the couple of off picks. We've got a Horizon, Wraith, and a Watson, but only seeing, 7 legends is probably the least that we've seen today across both regions, which really does stress that people want to play the most comfortable situation when it comes to this last game. They want to play the best possible composition, or what they think is the best possible composition, and sometimes that is just matching what the rest of the lobby is doing.
Tripods trying to force their way uphill, but this is going to be a really good indication of how tough it is to fight into this zone. If Tripods can make this rotation and somehow get up to that little rock on the right hand side, it's a pretty good place to play. You can hold teams out across from you. You can let the lobby do the damage, and that's the spot they're trying to play for. Glitch Energy are trying to hold them out at the moment. They managed to just about kind of weave, I would say, around the exhibit that was put down. Jen's taken some damage on his way, but you can play this position for quite some time towards this end game. And that's a really smart play, actually, coming in from Tripods.
Yeah, I think that Tripods have had some great ideas throughout today, but unfortunately have maybe been punished by some other teams that have had similar ideas and similar rotations, and Tripods just haven't been able to escape that rotation factor at times. They've never really had a circle that plays to their advantages just yet, and sometimes that's how Apex Legends can go, and sometimes you just have to pick up as many points on a day where it isn't necessarily working out as well for you, because there will be days where suddenly everything goes your way, and that's when you really have to capitalize on the points that are available for you. But now the teams that didn't have the circle information of where it was going will have the circle information. We also get the extra circle information that it's going right up to that fortress that we were speaking of. So all those teams who were in residence are still going to be sitting pretty and still be waiting. It's going to be like the Battle of Mordor, it would seem, and Helm's Deep is going to get into the involvement here, where every team is going to try and walk their way up to the fortress, but they are very much going to be shut down.
Interesting thing for me, just looking at our map overhead and where this zone is going to be pulling, is the fact that Furia and Exet are bang inside of it. That's our first place team and our second place team, which means that it could come down to one of those end zones where it's all about management. Maybe it's a straight 3v3 again between those two teams to decide who is going to come out on top when the games are all done and dusted today. Speaking of done and dusted, AJC will fall out. That will be the end of their day today. A little bit of a slow one for them, but obviously a lot to learn, of course, and now you're going to see Glitch Energy making their move. Tripods are going to be left behind. They decide that this isn't the fight for us to take. We want to prioritize rotation. Tripods trying to push up on it, but there is that cat wall once again, just to make sure that GE can make that rotation without taking too much damage, as Aiden takes a couple of bullets in the back. But they will be able to reset pretty comfortably here.
And Glitch Energy are in 6th place on 40 points. They're only 12 points behind Furia in first. So, you know, a first place is 12 points. So suddenly you catch that up. You'd obviously need the other teams to actually lose points there, as Gent has taken a lot of damage. It looks like Tripods should be okay. I think that when you look at how close it is between this top 6 and the circle that we've got here, we couldn't have asked for a better circle, because it is going to come down to a lot of micro decisions and a lot of fighting ability when we get to that final circle. Who is hitting those shots? Who is using their characters correctly? Who's making those mistakes in those final moments?
Ulti Gaming down at Thunderwatch at the moment. They're trying to make their way in, but they've got a couple of teams, Oxygen one of them, who are giving them a little bit of trouble on their way in. Tripod's still trying to force their way in. 100 Thieves are kind of holding them out from inside of that building they were having a little look at. But look at Exet's position. That's an amazing building to be holding down. Sometimes we see that end zone end right outside those doors. BBB, they've made their way up to the high ground, I believe. And I don't think Fury are too happy about it. Excuse me, BBB were down on that low ground. But look at the damage that's coming in. The Arc Stars, the frag grenades are going to force that team off high. And that's what you need to do here. You need to command the height. You cannot let someone just walk up on you.
Fury are the kings and queens of the castle at the moment. They will not let anyone get on top of their throne, and that's what's important. It's about having presence. And look how they're clearing everything as well. They are making sure there is no one up here with them. They can't even allow a speck of this area to be taken up by another team. Otherwise, that puts them at threat. They have to dominate the entire lobby by being at the highest point possible.
CLG inside of the zone as well. 100 Thieves, I think they lost one player I saw go down. So 100 Thieves, even though they made that cross and managed to find somewhere inside to play, Glitch Energy, are eliminated as well. It was indeed Scurry who went down for 100 Thieves. So Glitch Energy's day will be over, but another highly successful one for them. 100 Thieves, who won that game a little bit earlier and have played extremely well. Some of the best Apex Legends I've seen them play in quite some time, are going to have to force their way towards this end game with only 2 players remaining. 17 squads down. Still alive in this lobby as well. There's a lot of action going down around Thunderwatch at the moment as we keep our eyes on Lightning Rod with everybody stacked up on each other. But all these teams should be safe for quite some time.
And because there's so many teams, that's why we're not going to see 100 Thieves recover that banner. We're not going to see 100 Thieves get back up to a full 3. So even though they're in 3rd place, only 5 points behind first, things have got far more difficult for them. Luminosity just been eliminated. They were in 8th place. They could drop down a couple of positions because of that, as CCE also full. All these teams now who are making their way from the south onset are starting to be deleted from the server, and all the teams that have rotated earlier are reaping the rewards.
BBB, they are safe for that next zone as well. If they can hold this position down, having a charge rifle is certainly going to help them. And they've got some really good cover to play with. So BBB, who have been, I would say, quiet by their own standards today, and certainly by their performance in the first day, might have a chance to kind of rekindle something as we see Dark Zero start to go to work here, and it's going to be SCS and the Trident once again trying to escape and managing to get out of there for now.
I've never seen a Trident move so fast. And Burton will take one down, but Dark Zero now aware there are other teams. Dark Zero in third place, but they have to move into the circle. They're not sitting pretty like the likes of Furia, like the likes of Exet. They have to make sure that they try and make their way in, and there are plenty of teams that are going to potentially ruin their day. I mean, Dig are on the other side of things. There is going to be a Dark Veil to at least give Dark Zero cover for now. Oxygen also could threaten them, but here is where that circle is going. And notice the dotted lines. That is where the circle is going to move after the next one, and that is important for the likes of teams that are already in Lightning Rod, because you see where Furia are. They're going to have to move ever so slightly west, which could prove to be a little bit difficult.
Dark Zero making their move. This is a late assault for them. BBB have gone down, so they weren't able to hold down that position we were talking about. That's going to be taken away from them by Dig. So Dark Zero just trying to find any cover they can to just approach this fight, approach this end game, and should be able to just about thread the needle by the looks of things. But Oxygen Esports are here. They spot out Dark Zero. The smokes are going to go down. They're looking to cut them down at the pass here.
But Oxygen are doing damage, but then where do they go? They've now given up their position. Dark Veil will give them the cover, and they've decided they're going to have to use this to push left side and maybe even push this engagement. But Dark Zero are down. They are out. They go down in 12th position as Exet now will clean up all the pieces.
100 Thieves still involved in this game as well. Tripods out, Oxygen out. We saw also Optic Gaming fall in the last few moments as well, as Exet once again just command all of this space. They've cleared out the southern side. Now they just have to watch their side, see if there's any teams trying to creep up on them. And they have to plan their next move as well, Dan, because they have to move out into the open.
You can see the points now. Exet have taken first position off of Furia, but I feel like this is going to come down to placement rather so than the KP that's being picked up at the moment. Of course, though, the extra KP is not going to be a bad thing, as NRG looking over towards Rise, thinking about maybe making a push. And it's really, for NRG, a do-or-die situation here. They can't afford to fault, otherwise they will probably lose a player, and I imagine people who are watching on from the fortress we were speaking of over towards Lightning Rod are really going to take advantage of any weak players that are running up on them, and they don't have much time. This is the thing. The circles start to close very quickly as we get to the latter stages.
It's a really tough rotate here. Riser in front of them. And it's going to be NRG have to swing, but the damage is being done by teams in front of them. You can now see the Rise down to 2. Detox is going to try and swing. Sweet's going to take a huge amount of damage, but there's Nathan to back him up. Very, very sketchy moments here for NRG. They take so much damage. As look at the kill feed.
Yep.
Furia. A knock comes in from the Kraber of Sorcerer. And sometimes it can just be the big gun that can change the game.
Rise down to just 1. And it's why I wanted to point out that circle, because it did shift a little bit away from Furia and is going to make their life very difficult, but they've got themselves back up to a full 3. They have to move down off of the top of the mountain just to get into this next bit of the circle, and they've also got to be well aware of who can be suddenly joining as they fly through the Catalyst wall here.
Rise eliminated in the meantime. Panda's trying to change his attention to where he needs to be. Dropping game in, drop in, but also drop out immediately. Speaking of drop in, there's an armor being dropped. If they can get the res off, Zeratrick, it will have a little armor swap to play with, but it gets, unfortunately, re-knocked. Trying to punch him into a good position. Panda's trying to do what he can to keep Furious' chances alive here. There's an Arc Star to play with. That should be blocked by the knockdown shield. And even though you can see on the high ground, they're desperate to finish off Furia here. They can't manage to do it. Impulse is going to move down, though. Asura alongside it. It looks like Drug Free are going to try and swing on this one. Furia trying to hold the line. Pandas gets back on his feet, but down to no shields. Here comes his Watson, but that will be the end of the tournament. The end of the game day for Furia. They will fall in 5th position, and now Exet surely will be able to take this one home.
Yeah, with Furia gone down, Exet find themselves 4 points ahead. Even if they were to fall here, it will still be a W for Exet as they continue their rampage through the ALGS at the moment. And as you said, they want to be respected. They want to be the team that is considered one of the best, if not the best in the world. And they are certainly putting themselves up there in that discussion. But we need to see them progress and this consistency to carry on into LANs, into championships. But all the writing is on the wall right now. All the things are being put into place, and they could still find a victory in this game to extend their lead over the top and not even given a chance, because they will not know that there is other teams that couldn't overtake them at this point. There could still be 100 Thieves in the area, for example. It depends how keen an eye they were keeping on that kill feed when teams were being eliminated.
XA have a really good spot to play here as well. If they can survive, they don't have to output any damage. You can see how they're being focused. Sykes is going to be fried by a thermite. Everyone's trying to focus on XZ because everyone wants XZ's spot right now, and one of them has gone down. Catwall going to go down as well. Does CLG fancy taking a little bit of a fight here? Some piercing spikes going down, and there's a frag grenade as Nocturnal just explodes in front of his teammate.
I tell you what, I said this was a guarantee, but 100 Thieves are still alive and only 5 points behind. So if 100 Thieves were to win as a 2, very much still achievable. They win this game a week in game day as XZ go down. So 100 Thieves now find themselves 3 points behind on set. I might have spoken too soon, because now the duo, with the opportunity still to win this game day, they just require 3 points. Second place would tie them. First place would win it for them, a few KP alongside that, and suddenly 100 Thieves might do the unthinkable.
CLG trying to wall off, trying to make their rotation as well. They're going to be able to do so. They will take the zone. They're also going to have a little bit of loot to play with. That's one of the latest loot pills I've seen looted by a team in quite some time. But Mamba's going to be taken down. Vaxilon spotted them out. And Vaxilon's going to get a knock as well. So 100 Thieves, it's been a day of comebacks for teams. It's been a day of reintroduction from some of our biggest squads in the ALGS. They have a chance here, Dan, of pulling off a miracle.
If they go down in third, they will finish in second place overall. XZ will now have to watch on and hope that 100 Thieves do not do this as a duo. They're trying to take the fight. Dark Veil's now come down.
Omu trying to survive alongside Vaxilon. Peacekeeper hitting, but not hitting hard enough for them at the moment. But 100 Thieves are surviving. 100 Thieves are starting to thrive. And all of a sudden, 100 Thieves might come back from the dead. 100 Thieves as a duo will do the unthinkable in the final game here on match day number 3. You asked if Fury are back. Well, 100 Thieves certainly are.
I thought it was for sure XZ's day. 100 Thieves as a duo. Not possible, right? No one would allow that to happen, but the positioning that they had, the kings of the castle, they held on, they made sure they pushed in, they bided their time, they were patient, and they will win this match day, Glitter, and that is not what you'd expect from a duo, but it just shows that if you have the right players in the right place, and you have the right strategy, you can still get it done.
Well, this is also what we were talking about when we had looked at the points heading into the final match of the day, because it was just that close. There wasn't a massive gap that we were kind of already calling who was going to get first place. We knew one pop-off performance for anybody in like the top 8 could have completely shaken things up. And then now, like you said, 100 Thieves coming through, closing it out as a duo, took what we thought was almost a sure thing and completely flipped it on its head on set.
It was an amazing day. I mean, Dan's right. I didn't think 100 Thieves had a chance of winning that game from the position they were in, especially when they got knocked on the Valk rotate, because, you know, they were kind of sandwiched between teams that were above them and below them. At some point, they had to drop, but they just seemed to find some gap in the traffic that was going down from people leaving the height to kind of exploit. I don't know how they did it. We'd have to go back and watch that VOD, but once they were in that position, the knock that Vaxilon got onto the CLG member after they hit that Dark Veil, that makes the game different, because that forces the team down low ground. They're like, okay, we see a knock, we can go out, we can run out, we can fight. 100 Thieves play the high ground perfectly, they get damage, and then they capitalize. It was just, you know, you don't need 3 players on the map if you can influence what the other teams do, and that's exactly what they did in that position. It was, again, brilliant macro, last minute decision making, winning games for teams in this meta, and 100 Thieves, again, perfect example of it.
All right, well, for the final time today, Gaskin, let's walk through some of these highlights from the last match.
I mean, at this game, it was a slow burner. You're always going to get that when you get a big old circle pull towards the northern side. But when action started to unfold, boy, did we start to see some incredible things on our screens. From 3v3 engagements that did go a certain way that we'd expect to ones that didn't go a way that we'd expect. We saw Energy try and fight their way. We saw Furia, what we thought would be in one of the most commanding positions, get inted on after they had to drop down from their high ground. And I thought for sure XZ had this one wrapped up. I wrote 100 Thieves off a little bit too early, but sometimes as a commentator, it's good to be wrong, because then you end up with things like this. 100 Thieves doing it as a duo, utilizing the abilities they had available, and also hitting their shots. Vaxilon with the Peacekeeper went nuts, and Omnu just had to finish things off with the Mastiff. The boys came in with the shotguns, and the shotguns hit hard.
I mean, it was a phenomenal way to close out the day for them. As you can see, 7 kills, 19 points with that win. A huge way to clutch out the day. And then even though they didn't get the win, still 7 kills on Xset. CLG coming through, like you were just saying before on set, with some massive numbers themselves.
Yeah, CLG having a really good game in the final one of the day as well. Drug Free has also putting up a good amount of KP to put themselves on 11 points. It's a little bit of an up and down day for them, but they seem to salvage something towards the end of the game. But Furia, I think that game, that was their game to win, in my opinion, with the position that they had, with the POI that they had, and where that zone went. To come out of that with only 3 placement points and 1 kill, I think they would want that game back. But NRG, again, picking up points. They had some tough spots they had to play from, 4KP alongside them. But I think the story's we got to give all the love in the world to 100 Thieves. I'm so happy for this lineup. You saw the tweets after playoffs coming in from all of the players saying, we're so sorry we let you down. I've never felt like I've let down people so much. They're the things you remember, and that's what motivates you when you're back on top. That's what keeps that work ethic going. Those low times, you don't want to feel them again. You want to be back on top, and 100 Thieves certainly are today.
All right, we'll take a look at the second page here and see what happens with the rest of our squads. Dark Zero going out early, but still able to get some KP. And I said it so many times today, Dan, but the chaos factor of CCE, 6 KP and 0 placement points.
CCE were just doing whatever they could today to take fights, and you've got to respect it. I think they finished in 10th position overall, which is still going to get them some points on the board, so they'll be more than happy. AJC, I think Onset touched on it as well, not the best days for them. They were contested for the majority of their games, and sometimes that's how it happens when you start to get into some of these lobbies, and you have to learn the hard way. A bittersweet day for Glitch Energy. I feel like that last game was a disappointment, but they still had a very impressive day indeed. Around 7th overall they would have finished, and I think that they demonstrated they can really hang with the big boys here, and I'm expecting to see Glitch Energy up there with the big boys when it comes to getting to playoffs, when it comes to talking about LAN, maybe even when we talk about world championships. There's players on this roster that are good enough to be there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Now we'll see what happened with our series results. As you called it, 5 points above Xset is 100 Thieves after that final win on the day. And even so, still a very close point spread. Even with a bad last game, Fury is still up there in third, only a few points behind Xset. Dark Zero, a few points behind that. I mean, this was not an easy day for our competitors. So let's see what this does to the season standings, because this is where things really start to matter on set.
Well, FaZe hold on to top spot. Meat Lovers just in behind them as well, but Xset jumping up onto a good amount of points as well. And Dark Zero in behind them, but Glitch Energy, I mean, this is what we wanted to see, right? Glitch Energy up in a position where they deserve to be, because they have been consistently involved in in-games with those big boys. They've managed to take home some wins. They've managed to clutch up in situations, and they are certainly a team that I have my eyes on moving forward. But this is I would call it the section of worry, right? 11th to 20th, because we know that there's 11 spots available to qualify for playoffs. If you are on this page, you have got to be concerned, and you know that you have to do some big things. But 100 Thieves, they certainly did some big things today.
Yeah, we're going to double check all of those numbers, make sure that they are correct on the graphic.
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure that was pre.
I think that was pre, because Xset was still on 25, yeah. But we'll get those updated. And I will say that, when we look across what happened in EMEA as well, we saw some of the teams that performed badly in their first match day make up for it in now their second match day, which evens out these leaderboards a little bit. And the teams that might have had a false sense of security in some of the positions are suddenly opening their eyes saying, okay, this is far closer now. We have to make sure we stay on top of things.
Yeah, and I know we said it at the beginning of the show, because it feels like there's a lot of time left in the split still, but that's going to fly by, especially when you take into consideration the days off that some of the teams have. I mean, when you've already played your first 2 days and then had today off, it allowed some of the teams that hadn't played their second day to really catch up, Mark, and you can see how much that will affect those points. And once that threshold that we've mentioned a few times that the players have all kind of figured out math-wise in their head is hit by some of those squads, it's also potentially going to change up the way the lobbies play out.
I think we're already seeing the lobbies, the way they are playing out, changing as well. Today, I really felt like every single point mattered to every single team that was in that lobby. And it's, even after 2 days, if you have a bad start after 2 match days, then you are under pressure immediately, regardless of how many days there are left, because you can't afford to have a third, and you certainly can't afford to have a fourth, because you're out. You're not going to be making it to playoffs. You're not going to have an opportunity to put those points on the board. You're just then playing to stay in the split and stay in Pro League for next season. And the pressure ramps up, like we saw in that final game. Teams play slower. They play more conservative because they know one mistake is going to cost them 1-2 points that can be all the difference when it comes to final leaderboard. So I'm fascinated to watch the rest of this split. I think it's one of the best splits of Pro League we've seen in some time, with the meta shift, with the teams all being so talented. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch for sure.
Not only that, but obviously a lot of the teams that didn't play today, they'll be playing tomorrow, and that'll be a huge opportunity for them to try and level the playing field a little bit. And I think that knowing in the back of their heads, Gaskin, that there's already that added pressure on their shoulders, it could really mess up some of the squads.
Yeah, I think pressure does a lot of things to certain teams, whether that be pressure from the organization that you're representing, whether that be pressure just from the teammates you've picked up. Maybe they're applying a little bit too much pressure. We see some IGLs that are a little bit like that, but also some teams, they thrive in the pressure environment, especially when you get to LAN, and that's what makes the difference between a few of these squads is they can get into those pressure environments and will be a better team. And I think that's what makes ALGS so exciting, because it is such a pressure-heavy esport, because there's so many teams, because there's so many decisions you have to make, because there's so many eyes on from various areas. Pressure can make diamonds, but at the same time, pressure can break pipes.
All right, I'm on board with that analogy. I can deal with that. All right, we are getting those numbers fixed, guys, so just bear with us while we're getting that done. We're just going to continue hanging out here and chatting about what we saw today, because honestly, it was a phenomenal performance from a lot of teams that needed to get some points on the board and prove, not because they needed the points, but prove their consistency. And I'm still going to be stuck on Xset right now, because they did exactly that. And we talked about it a little bit. I think people doubted them just a tad, as they were kind of like always almost up there and then just not quite hitting that mark. And after, we all got to speak with Hodsec, he said that they want to be one of those teams that's constantly in discussion and known as one of those top squads. Mark, if they keep doing what they did here today, that's going to happen without question.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing for me is like this roster, this Xset roster, they're a team that have always had to face adversity for whatever reason. And I feel like this is the first time that they're just comfortable. They had the situation where they had to find a new org that represented them. Xset came in, they were like, these are our guys. Then all of a sudden they're like, hey, we're finding some form, we're feeling really comfortable. And then NRG come along and say, hey, we want one of your players. And he goes and plays with NRG. And they're like, okay, let's pick up Sykes. And now it feels like this unit is together, the org is behind them, everything that they're trying is working. And the pressure seems to be off their shoulders of things that they don't have to worry about and they don't want to worry about. And now it's just about playing Apex. And once you remove all of those external things, then all of a sudden, if you're a player like Nocturnal and all you have to focus on is playing Apex, and you've got someone like Hodsec sat behind you as well, who's going to give you everything that he can and all of his input to put your team in a great position to win games and be consistent, it just seems like it's a happy place to be at the moment on Xset, and it's showing in their performances.
Okay, well, you brought up a lot of players there, which means I think it might be a good time to start talking about which players stood out at the end of today for us, which means it is time for the Monster Energy MVP. All right, let's get into this discussion. I'm excited for this one. On set, let's start with you. Who is your MVP?
I'm looking at Furia. I think it was really impressive today to see Furia make a little bit of a comeback and a little bit of noise in this lobby after a little bit of quiet start and the disappointment of not making playoffs last time. There was obviously questions flying around like, what's happening with Furia? Are they going to be able to compete? Is it a team that was just reliant on a certain meta? Well, I think we've had that question answered today, and Pandas is my player to watch and my player that I've picked as the Monster MVP nomination, because I think he's just kind of one of those players who quietly goes about his business. But when you're looking at statistics, when Furia do well, he is always up there, always finishing kills, always dealing out a huge amount of damage for his team to work in and around. And I think that he's one of the players who maybe just demands a little bit more respect. Understandably, a lot of the love and the attention goes to His Watson and Zeratricky for their history in the Apex Legends Global Series, and His Watson for his community, obviously, that he has on Twitch. But Pandas is the glue that holds this team together, and he's also got a huge amount of clutch factor that puts them in a great position. I think he needs some love. So Pandas, my love to you.
All right. I love it. I love that pick. Gaskin, what do you got?
I'm going to go for Vaxlon. I mean, it's very easy to pick someone from the winning team of the day, but maybe we weren't expecting 100 Thieves to be there, and perhaps one of the reasons why 100 Thieves were there was because of Vaxlon and some of the shots that he's hit. Historically, this is one of the guys who just does disgusting things with whatever weapon is in his hands. It doesn't matter whether it's a weapon that has range, whether it's a weapon that is close, like the shotgun and what we saw in the end of that last game. He always is hitting his shots, and I think that this is going to go back as one of the big moments of the season for 100 Thieves. I cannot stress enough how important it was they did this and achieved this as a 2. The motivation that will give you pushing forward in the season, knowing you have that ability to take on a 2 versus 3 versus 3 as a duo, just means that now going forward, you're going to have all that confidence in the world and you are going to take these fights. And just look at the shots that he connects with here with the Peacekeeper as well. The chunks are so important. You need that confidence. You need players that can hit these shots because they are the difference makers. And Vaxlon, that's why I think he's one of the MVPs.
All right, another fantastic pick. Absolutely. I have decided that I'm sticking with a theme here today because I chose Exit as my team to watch, and now I have chosen Sykes as my MVP. And I mean, it's just it's such a phenomenal day for Exit in general, but I want to talk about Sykes because even just heading into the final match of the day, Sykes was only 2 kills behind Snipedown for being individual kill leader of the day at 22. And then after that last match, ended up surpassing and is now top of the leaderboard, 27 kills and over 13k damage for the 12 matches played by Exit so far. And then we have to talk about these plays clutching up here when they first drop down from the rock, and then yet again here at the end of match number 5 in this epic battle between Optic with that RE45, knowing the right time to back off and make sure that he doesn't put the team in a wrong bad situation by keeping himself there with low health. I mean, in general, just so impressive from Sykes and all of Exit here today, but Sykes has to be my pick for MVP. So I feel like we did a great job yet again. So many impressive players to talk about, but that's been your Monster Energy MVP. All right, now we need to talk about what we've got coming up next because it's 3 of me.
I mean, that's a terrible team I would hate to run into on Apex Legends, by the way.
I mean, we saw a lot of pings in one of the games earlier. I was going to say it reminds me of when I gamed with Glitter and I was just getting pinged the whole time because apparently I don't listen enough. But here we are with 3 of her. You know what, then she'll be fine. Everyone will listen.
I think it's time for the interview. That's what I think it's for. Okay, because we are going to be bringing in Onmu. I'm actually very excited for this, especially after the final match of the day. We have some questions. So let's talk to Onmu, obviously from 100 Thieves. Phenomenal performance in game number 6. Hello. First of all, congratulations. How are you feeling right now?
I mean, I'm feeling a lot better after I kind of sold game 5 for us, but I mean, it ended pretty well, so.
Okay, I think everybody needs to know what was going through both of your minds as a duo, match number 6, and you know that you have to clutch this one up in order to get the top spot. How did you handle that?
I mean, we just kind of stayed calm, stayed composed. We utilized Seer, obviously with some free info from his passive, but we just kind of like our whole goal was just to get as many points as we could, just kind of steal some kills from inside of the ring, like on the edge, and then just kind of rotate in if we saw a free spot. So just kind of staying calm. That's all you got to do.
All right, Onset, what do you want to ask?
Firstly, Onmu, hello, my friend. Welcome to the show. I just want to say I'm super proud of you guys for what you've achieved today because I will never forget the tweets that I saw from all of you after playoffs, and it just felt like there was an outpouring of disappointment. There was like this idea that you'd let people down and what they would expect from this roster. And I think you need to just take a moment to really appreciate what you've done today and how good it is for you guys to kind of put this back together. And this roster is showing what we always knew it could do and what you always have done. But I want to talk about that last game because you talk about being calm, you talk about being composed and how tough it is to do that. How did you navigate that traffic in and around Lightning Rod? Because you lost a player on the way down when you hit that Valcolt. So you had to play pretty much the entire game as a duo with 17 squads still remaining. Teams above you, teams below you. And you say you used the Seer passive to see where the gaps were. But how difficult was it to navigate that traffic and find yourself in a position to win the game?
I mean, I would say it was pretty difficult. We kind of like split landed, which is why we kind of died at the beginning. I kind of landed on my own on a different spot, and there's some miscommunication between us. They thought I was talking about the other side of the zip line, but I was talking about one. So first, like, me and Vax needed to regroup. We kind of just ran around the zone until I ended up making it back to Vax. And we just kind of stayed low key as stuff was happening around us. And once we saw our opportunity to move, we basically took it. And then from that point on, we just, I guess, zipped up to the height and thirded a fight and then had high ground for the whole thing.
And I'll jump off the back of that. I mean, seeing you guys take down match 6 was obviously incredible. We were speaking about pressure and how a lot of teams deal with pressure and how difficult it is. One of the things I was curious about from your side, you represent 100 Thieves, which is one of the biggest organizations in the world, comes with a fan base, comes with pressure. Do you guys feel that at all? Is there tweets that you get if you perform badly? Do you get tweets if you're performing well? Does the fan base make things any more difficult?
As far as like tweets from the fan base, if we do bad, I kind of like try to stay off of Twitter now. If we do bad, I just don't really want any negative energy. But from the most part, I haven't really seen any like negative tweets from any of the fans over at 100 Thieves. I feel like we have a really great support system behind us with the staff at 100 Thieves, and obviously our coach Six. He plays a tremendous role in our success. But as far as the fans go, no, they don't really tweet out at us. They don't yell at us if we do bad. They're supportive through our highs and through our lows.
Now, looking forward for the rest of the split, you guys obviously have to today put yourselves in a much better position. What is the goal as a squad? Because obviously this meta has shaken so many things up for teams. How do you feel like you're kind of slotting into that now?
I feel like this meta supports us a little bit better. I was, when we were playing in London, I was playing a character I wasn't too familiar with and didn't really fit our play style for me personally. I feel like we're in, as far as character goes, our roles that we identify with really well. So I would say this meta is definitely a lot better, and I see us on top at the end of this. We just gotta stay kind of humble, stay locked in, and keep working.
All right, boys. Anything else you want to ask Onmu before I let him go?
I'm not going to ask you something. I'm just going to say again, I am proud of you guys. I think it's really great to see you guys go from, you know, the low that you obviously felt after playoffs to being back where you deserve to be at the top. So I'm not going to ask you a question. I'm just going to say congratulations on today's performance. I think it's certainly a marker in seeing how far you guys have come.
I will say it's evident Onset's not going to be tweeting any bad things about you. It seems like he's a big fan.
I use Twitter.
And
this is me. I stay off Twitter.
He stays
for a
off
good
it.
reason. But I will say, you know, you guys had great success in previous years, and one of the things that does build a team is by having a low point. I don't think it was a particular low at playoffs. I mean, I think you guys, you want to be first place, so anything less than first place is always going to be bad. But would you say as a squad you came together and you assessed this meta and said, okay, we really feel like now we can be back on top? When you saw like the patch notes, for example, did you know for sure this was going to help you out?
Going into it, seeing the patch notes, we definitely thought it was going to help us out. We basically kind of sat down. We were like, look, we kind of fumbled in London. We can either give up now, lay everything down, or we can get back on and hit the ground running. So we basically just worked hard, obviously leading after a bad performance in London, in our opinion. But we really just sat down and like kind of played characters that like we identify with a lot more, which I think is a really big thing that you need to do. Like, you can be a great player at taking space, but if you're playing a character that doesn't really allow you to do that, it's just going to feel awkward.
Well, the changes are absolutely evident. You guys had a fantastic clutch at the end of the day. Put yourselves in a great spot. Congratulations again on the win, and thank you for chatting with us.
Thank you. Hey, thanks for having me. Have a great day, guys.
I'm sure we will speak again very soon, but it's not just the players that have an impact on our games, it's also the items within the game, which means it is time for us to do WT Black, What's in Your Pack? And today is a day of scopes, okay? We talked about the digital threat in EMEA to now in NA. We are talking about the HCOG Ranger Gaskin. Let's talk about how it affected the day today.
Scopes are very important. I think I called out a player for using a bruiser on a wingman earlier, so you can be judged for what scope you use, and also scopes can be very helpful, but the 3 times, it's one of those scopes that I think I go back and forth with. With some weapons, I absolutely love it. With others, I absolutely hate it. But those who do find success with the 3 times, they will be so happy when this is in the crafter, when this is in any sort of drop spot that they can find, because the shreds that you can do, I think the R301 would probably be my favorite weapon for it. I don't know if you would agree with that one on set, but I've recently transitioned from mouse and keyboard to controller. Maybe I shouldn't be admitting that, but it means that I don't need the 3 times. Give me the 2 times. Give me the 1 times, because I'm going to be up close and personal.
Hey, look, put this thing on a scout, put this thing on a havoc, put this thing on a flatline. You're going to have a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite scopes in the game. I would say maybe my second favorite after the 2 times, but it's one of those scopes that's a really good utility scope, and it's a perfect competitive scope as well, because it allows you to do damage to the likes of the Nemesis, any kind of AR. You're in a good spot if you've got a 3 times, and it's not very often you're going to ping it and someone's going to go, you know what, I'm good. I'm going to leave that one on the floor. You usually have someone to run it.
It is all about the versatility with this scope for sure, and we can see just how much it impacted our games here today. And so this has been WT Black. What's in your pack? All right, that means that it is almost time for us to say goodbye for today. I'm very sad about that, but before we do that, we'll get some final thoughts from our fantastic casters. You guys carried the entire day on set. How are you feeling after NA being completed?
It was a lot of fun today, and I think it was a really interesting development, not only in metagame, but also in the resurgence of some teams. I think the one story I take out today is the likes of Fury, 100 Thieves, coming back and kind of proving that they're not done yet when it comes to what they can show in Apex Legends and what they can achieve in Apex Legends. So some crazy plays, some really good clutches, and some really good quality games as well in North America. And I think that the quality is only going to get better and better as we roll through the weeks.
All right. I can't wait till we continue on with more of our games. I think we've got a lot in store for this split. And obviously another day right around the corner. So things are just going to continue being shaken up. But Gaskin, what are your final thoughts on the day?
I mean, you said that we carried, but realistically, everyone knows that Glitter carried this because Mark and I are children and we need guidance. We need someone to take care of us. Otherwise, things get out of control and we start to go down rabbit holes that we shouldn't. So thank you, Glitter, for keeping us in check. When it comes to the actual Apex, I think a lot of people were worried about this meta, right? Oh, it's super heavy Seer and Cat. It's going to be boring. There's going to be too much visual clutter. I get it, right? It's difficult to play in, but watching it's so exciting to see these players try and develop new strategies, trying to find out ways to defeat that meta. EMEA completely went against the grain. We saw far more differences in terms of legend selection when it came to their compositions as well, but NA also trying to find a few things to switch things up as well. Watsons were featuring, we saw Wraith come into the equation, Bang was plenty available for all of these squads to pick from. I think we even saw Aloba and Ramparts coming into things. So there is still variety in the legend selection, which makes me happy. I like to see variety. I don't want it to be stale, and I think that we've not quite got there yet. I don't think we found the meta, and I think there is still more to develop here, and that's what I love about ALGS. That's what I love about the players. I think they do a great job at keeping it entertaining, and I can't wait to see how it all progresses.
All right. I could not agree more with everything that you guys have said. But that means that is a wrap on day number 3 for split 2 of the ALGS. But don't worry, like I said earlier, everybody, we have day number 4 coming right around the corner. Tomorrow, same time, same channel, different groups. It's going to be just as exciting, though. And trust me, you do not want to miss a single moment of that action. It'll all kick off at 11 a.m. PT. Also, if you don't already, then you should definitely be following at Play Apex Esports on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube to keep yourself up to date with all things ALGS related, because it's only going to get better from here. But that's all we've got today for our NA region. Congratulations to all of our teams on their performances from today. The level of competition just gets better every single day. Obviously, thank you so much to our partners, and thank you all in chat for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow for day number 4.